The time is now 6 p.m. I'm calling the regular concurrent meeting of the City Council to order. Today is December 8th. Can we have roll call, please?
Council Agency Authority members Harris?
Here.
Mashburn?
Here.
Sullivan? Councilmember Sullivan? Vice Mayor, Vice Chair Beatty?
Here.
Mayor, Chair Roulette.
I'm here. If you could please join us in a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 3, approval of the agenda. Mr. City Manager, do we have any items that we're going to adjust today?
No, we do not, Mayor.
I'll take a motion for approval.
Councilmember Mashburn?
I got Beatty and I have, I believe, Harris. Can we have a roll call vote for that, please?
Councilmember Mashburn?
Aye.
Councilmember Sullivan?
Yes.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Beatty?
Aye.
Mayor Roulette.
Aye. We'll move to item 4, approval of the minutes. Can I have a motion for that?
Move approval.
I got Harris and Beatty. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Sullivan?
Yes. You can hear me, right?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
we can hear you now.
Okay, thanks.
Councilmember Mashburn?
Aye.
Councilmember Harris?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Beatty?
Aye.
Mayor Roulette.
Aye. We will move to item 5, presentations. We do have a presentation tonight. It's a mayor's accommodation. This is for Christina Palmer, who served as Park and Recreations Commissioner. She was appointed in 2012. She, during her term, worked for the Dog Park Committee, the Creek Walk Concert Series Committee, the Youth Sports Advisory Team, the Facility Naming Committee, and we appreciate everything she did for our Parks and Recreation. Thank you so much, Christina. With that, we'll move to item 6, the consent calendar. Is there anyone on this council that would like to pull any item off of the consent calendar tonight? Hearing none, is there anyone from the public that would like to pull any item off the consent calendar tonight?
Wendy, your mic.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Hi, Wendy, are you with us?
Sorry, yes. I'd like to request to pull item C.
Item C, 6C, I will pull. Anything else?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Seeing item 6C is pulled, is there anyone else from the public that would like to pull any other item?
I see no additional hands from the public.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll close it to the public. I'll entertain motion for item 6A, B, D, E, F, G, H, I. I got Beatty's movement and Harris second. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Mashburn?
Aye.
Councilmember Sullivan?
Yes.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Beatty?
Aye.
Mayor Roulette.
Aye. We will open up item 6C, and I will, unless the council has a comment, I'll just open it up to Wendy Brecken. Wendy, are you with us?
Hi, this is Wendy Brecken. My question to staff or to you is, it looks like there's 22 million in traffic that hasn't been spent in the traffic fund, and maybe up to 6 million in park and recs. And I was just wondering, what's the plan for that? I know that there's a number of people concerned about traffic safety. And so I was wondering if maybe that could be used as maybe some kind of a focus group to help improve traffic in the area, in the city.
Okay, thank you. Tim Burke, are you there? Can you field that question for me, sir?
Yes, sir. There is a lot of projects that have traffic impact fees that are allocated to those projects that are currently in design, and we are currently trying to get enough funds to move forward with those projects. And I think the number of the large dollar amount is indicative of how much money that those projects are going to need to move forward. Two large traffic impact fee projects include the Vacaville 505 project, which is estimated, I believe, at $15 million. Also, the second phase of the Jepson Parkway project, which will widen Leisuretown Road from Elmira Road north to New Alamo Creek and get us closer towards I-80. That project is also in the neighborhood of $12 million. So I think what you're seeing is a lot of the money that's being set aside for projects when they come up. We'll need the full amount to go out to bid and to construct those projects.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else from the public that would like to speak on 6C only?
I see no other hands from the public.
Okay, I'll close public comment and I'll bring it back for motion.
Move approval.
I've got Beatty and Harris, please. Roll call vote.
Vice Mayor Beatty?
Aye.
Councilmember Bashburn?
Aye.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Councilmember Sullivan?
Yes.
Mayor Roulette?
Aye. Okay, I would like to move to item 7, business from the floor. This is time to address the council with issues that are not on this agenda, but are within the council subject matter jurisdiction. Do we have anybody on the phone tonight?
Edward Russell, I'll open your mic.
Good evening. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, sir, we can. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm understanding there's a new board being seated this evening, outstanding. That's just part of the change that hopefully within the next few years, we'll see the status quo of the good old boy system begin to be erased and actual progress of more inclusive city start to take place. With that said, I would ask that the mayor would start a conversation with the city attorney, who would instruct. Well, let me rephrase that. I would ask the city manager, who is in charge, who hired the police chief, to direct the police chief Carly to investigate the hate crime at Vanden in March of 2019, because 4 of those terrorists are actual residents here in the city of Vacaville. So it's well within your jurisdiction. To not investigate is just another sign that a total overhaul is due with this city leadership. A student was attacked. More than one protected class was attacked, and the city has done nothing. Vacaville has done nothing. So I would request that the mayor shows some human dignity and force the city manager to force the police chief to open an investigation. And I have all pictures and anything else you may need to start that investigation, to start enforcing and criminalizing these terrorists. With that being said, I have, since there's a complete separation with the city and the district, the school district, this Friday, I'm having a open conversation with young folks about personal barriers and healthy relationships to keep our young folks safe. All you have to do is follow me on Facebook and get all that information. If the city doesn't want to protect our young folks, I will. I am the people's champ. I'm going to change the city and how we protect our young folks and how we give them a voice to participate. You folks have a great night.
You too, sir. Thank you. Do we have any other hands up?
Ian Lee, I'll open your mic.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Hi, thank you for your time. I guess to echo a little bit of what Mr. Russell had addressed, to get Carly, our police chief, to reopen certain cases and or look into all these seeds of Proud Boy mentality that has been going on in Vacaville. I'm still waiting for my cup of coffee with him in regards to when Vacaville police had assaulted me while I was handcuffed under some kind of date rape from a bar in downtown Vacaville, and had me in handcuffs and then assaulted me, put a black bag over my head and a straitjacket and dropped me off at Solana County Jail, where I was denied toxicology reports for 3 days until half of my bruises healed. I give you the rest of my time.
Thank you. Next caller.
Julia Rustin Thomas, I'll open your mic.
Hi, everybody. This comment is going to be strictly towards the mayor. The mayor has been making a lot of comments at council lately, regarding essentially the public speaking, that there is a coordinated attempt to do something. I'm not really sure, but during the meeting when we were talking about appointing somebody from District 2 or having a special election from District 2, there's a very specific comment about how if we as the people didn't get the results we were looking for, we would be against some other form of against changing the rules because then it wouldn't favor us. And the call out of blatant attempts at power grabs and blaming it on people who are calling in, quite frankly, just trying to air their grievances. We are just people. We're the people of this town, of this area, and quite frankly, who care about Vacaville. And the way that we are unable to respond publicly at council meetings to the attacks on us by the mayor is it's reprehensible and quite frankly unfair. The amount of personal digs that Mayor Rowlett has aimed at specifically at Councilman Sullivan is unacceptable. I'm just not understanding it. And quite frankly, we're all just trying for the same thing, which is a better Vacaville. That's it. And quite frankly, the personal attacks and otherwise basically railing at people who take their time out of their day to come on these meetings and actually say their piece. It's not cool, man. Like, you got, just accept the fact that people disagree with you, and that's okay. So that's all I have. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Next caller.
For Bonte Robinson, I will open your mic.
Hey, good evening, City Council. So, since people were speaking on John Carly earlier, I decided that, hey, why don't I get in on the fun? I feel like people have forgotten that John Carly still hasn't released the Fallujah papers. And if you forgot what that was June 1st or June 2nd. It was the night when people were having all the big George Floyd protests. And one of his officers made a comment that, oh, this night was terrible. This was just like Fallujah. For those who don't know, Fallujah is a city in Iraq. Basically, they were describing it as a war zone. And I wanted, to see some transparency, to see, what was really going on that night. Also, I wanted to address, since this is Mitch Mashburn's last night of being on the city council, there was a day where he called us, me and many other people who speak on these city council meetings, he called us the vocal minority. And I guess you can call us that since you hate minorities anyway. But I don't like the term of us being called a vocal minority just because we're the only people who take the time out of our day to get on the city council meetings. We get on these city council meetings because we actually give a damn about what's going on. That's my comment for this item.
Thank you, sir. Do we have any other callers tonight?
I see no additional hands at this time.
I'm going to close business from the floor. We'll move to item 8A. Mr. City Manager, would you like to start us off, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the City Council. The first item tonight is a resolution making findings on energy savings and determining other matters in connection with an energy service agreement, as well as authorizing a solar power purchase agreement with Forefront Power for the Easterly Wastewater Treatment Plant. Bonnie Robinson or Curtis Paxton will be making a presentation.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council. This is Curtis Paxton, Director of Utilities. I will just make a couple brief statements and then turn the presentation over. Just like to thank Bonnie Robinson, Associate Utility Civil Engineer, and Justin Cole, Assistant Director of Utilities, for a lot of work they've put in on getting this project to this point. We're very excited about to move forward with solar at the Easterly Wastewater Treatment Plant. David Nam, City Attorney's Office, has also been extremely helpful. Tonight we'll have a brief presentation by Kevin Flanagan from SPUR. SPUR stands for School Project for Utility Rate Reduction, and Brian Taylor from Forefront Power. So I will turn it over to, I believe Kevin is going to start us off. Kevin Flanagan.
Hi, good evening. My name is Kevin Flanagan. Curtis, thank you for the introduction. I appreciate it. We can just jump into the first slide. I know we want to be brief tonight with the presentation. So as Curtis mentioned, I represent an organization called SPUR. So SPUR is not a company. We are a joint powers authority made up of hundreds of public agencies across the state. Originally founded by school districts back in 1989. We have over 200 public agencies today, representing thousands of facilities across the state. And what we do is we put together piggybackable buying programs to help public agencies reduce utility costs. So I work on one of our buying programs called the Renewable Energy Aggregated Procurement Program, or REAP program. And what we did is we ran a statewide request for proposals for solar and energy storage. We made vendors compete in that statewide competitive process and selected a winner through that process. The winning company of that competitive process was a company called Forefront Power, who you will hear from next, and Brian Taylor. The benefits of the REAP program to the city are really that by piggybacking off of the competitive process that we conducted as a JPA, you can save time, you can save money, and you can reduce project risk. As an organization, we were able to secure very favorable terms and conditions in the contract as well as market-leading pricing to help the city save money on its PG&E bills. In the RFP itself, we solicited pricing and terms for lots of different project types. As I mentioned, lots of vendors competed in that RFP, including all the real major vendors that do these types of projects for public agencies, and Forefront Power won that competitive process. Next slide, please. So the benefits of the REAP program are really significant. As I mentioned, it helps you streamline your procurement process by piggybacking off of the process that we ran. It's really kind of a giant easy button for the city to accelerate the project, streamline the project, and realize savings sooner, as well as capture incentives before they decline. The REAP program has been used by public agencies up and down the state, including the city of Petaluma, the city of Bakersfield, the city of Fresno, city of San Diego, city of San Luis Obispo, and many others. And ultimately what it does is get the city really great pricing with favorable terms and conditions and reduce project risk. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Brian Taylor, who works for Forefront Power, which is the company that won the RFP that we conducted. And Brian's going to tell you a little bit about the project that you're considering tonight.
Thank you. This is Brian. Thank you, esteemed council members. If you could turn to the next slide, I'll continue the presentation. So Forefront Power, we are a best-in-class development group. We have done over 1 gigawatt of solar throughout the country. We are currently the leader in the California public sector. We're doing more public sector solar and storage work than any of our competitors. And we are backed by Mitsui, which is a very stable parent company with an A credit rating, a 400-year-old company that gives us a very stable balance sheet, which is very important in these times. Next slide, please. Thank you. So the city is considering a power purchase agreement for the solar. The way a power purchase agreement works is as follows. There's no upfront cost, no bonding. You can conserve your funds and use them for other projects. Forefront Power will finance the system, will design it, will build it, will own it, and will operate it at the Easterly Wastewater Treatment Plant. The city will pay for the energy produced by the system at a rate that is both below what you're currently paying PG&E significantly and flat for 20 years. So whereas PG&E rates have gone up over time, even at a fair inflationary rate, your rates will remain fixed at a lower rate. There's also a federal tax credit available on solar. And so by Forefront Power owning the system, we're able to monetize that tax credit and pass the benefit of that tax credit coupon, if you will, onto the city in the form of a lower energy rate. And so if the city were to buy this with their own bond money, they would not have the tax appetite to be able to monetize that tax credit. And then kind of in conclusion, this is an aligned partnership. So Forefront Power, we take care of all the operations and maintenance of the system. This isn't another asset for the staff to maintain. We guarantee the performance of the system. So if it doesn't produce in any given year what we said it will in the contract, we compensate you for what you had to pay PG&E for that more expensive electricity. And so really our interests are aligned in that the city wants us to produce as much clean, cheap solar energy as possible, and so do we, because that's how we are essentially make our revenue. Next slide, please. Thanks. And so what we're looking at is a 4.1 megawatt solar farm out at the Easterly Wastewater Treatment Plant with a 1 megawatt battery storage system. This is a ground mount project with a single axis tracker that essentially follows the sun during the day. It's largely considered the most efficient form of solar out there. And so you're getting a really great production from the system. And this should offset 90% of the treatment plant's energy needs. If you could turn to the next slide, please. As mentioned, we're looking at a 4.1 megawatt system here in this table with a 1 megawatt storage system and a production that is going to offset roughly 90% or 89% of the energy produced or consumed at the wastewater treatment plant. In year one, we expect to be able to reduce the energy bill of the wastewater treatment plant by about $460,000 or about 30%. And then over the course of 20 years, assuming a very conservative rate at what PG&E rates would go up at over that time frame, you're looking at about $18 million in savings. So again, $18 million in savings $460,000 in the first year. Turn the next slide, please. Kevin alluded to some of the changing incentives in the solar and storage landscape, so I just want to touch on those very briefly. As mentioned, there are federal tax credits, which recently stepped down this past year from 30%, where they were for the past 10 years, to about 26%, where they currently stand. Next month, in January, they turn to 22%, and then following year, 10%. So by executing this agreement now, we're able to take the necessary action to safe harbor those tax credits, even though we're going to be building the system next year. And so this allows us to pass on the maximum incentives available to the district, whereas waiting would forego some of those incentives. There's also storage incentives known as S-CHIPs, or Self-Generation Incentive Program. And as those step down, obviously you get less free money for the battery storage that gets installed. And then finally, and perhaps most importantly, is the net energy metering framework in California. The compensation that a solar customer receives for energy exported back to the grid. Just like a very large version of solar on one's house, this spins your meter backwards when you're not consuming the energy simultaneously that it produces. And PG&E in this case compensates you for that energy at the full retail rate minus about 2 cents. It used to be the full retail rate under NEM 1.0. Under NEM 2.0, it's a little bit less, and NEM 3.0 is currently in discussions by the CPUC and the utilities. So by acting now, the city is able to get grandfathered under the current net energy metering framework before it deteriorates, you might say. Next slide, please. And so if you take those incentives and the benefits of the SPUR REAP RFP, you're looking at approximately $5 million to $5.5 million of additional savings that the city is able to accumulate in terms of avoiding the cost of an RFP, accelerating year one savings, monetizing that extra tax benefit, and getting that almost full retail rate compensation for the energy. Not to mention saving on staff resources of having to run an RFP and getting a very de-risked project with SPUR. So I think that's the conclusion. If you could turn, I think, to slide, this slide. So really that's it. In conclusions, we're looking at saving over the course of 20 years, on-site solar and storage, utilizing SPUR's RFP process. And I can answer any questions that anyone may have. And then the next slide, I think, is the request.
Thank you very much. Anyone from the council would like to speak?
Yes, if you don't mind. I have a couple of comments and a couple of questions.
Go ahead.
All right. This is for staff. As I've already spoken with the gentleman that just provided this update for us, one is that it takes up a fairly large footprint at the front of our land, in front of our facilities, and you've probably already covered it somewhere in your report, and forgive me if I missed it, but are there any expansions that we need to consider over the next 20 years that might, be hampered by the size of this project? I mean, I think it's a great project in terms of, reducing our cost. But that was one question. The other question is, we spent over $350 million on state mandated upgrades out there at that facility, and our ratepayers ended up getting significant jumps in their, fees. And so I'm wondering if the offset over time, number one, it'll help, but will it be utilized to help pay down the debt? And two, will it also have a potential of providing some relief for ratepayers? Thank you.
This is Curtis. I can answer those questions now if you'd like.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay. As far as the site, that's always been intended just as a kind of a buffer from our neighbors. So any expansion plans will not be affected by the use of that area for solar. And then the second question was in regards to the rates. So this will be, reduced expenses. So as we move forward, as it's been, I think 2014 was the last time that the rates were increased. Last sewer rate study was done 2009, 2010 timeframe. So this savings will go into, continuing analysis of where we are as far as expenses and, revenue requirements. And obviously reduced expenses will help, and this would be a potential source for paying down the debt. We have debt service payments as part of the budget each year, but reduced expenses then will go into the analysis as far as what our revenue requirements are moving forward.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate your immediate response.
Any other council members before I open up the public comment?
I've got a comment, Ron.
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
So my comment is, first, I'm very much in favor of this particular project. The way in which you implement solar energy, there's dozens of different ways, I'm sure. So I think this is a smart tool in our toolbox. I don't think it's the final tool or the only tool, but I do like kind of the initial proposition and kind of where we're headed. I did want to state, though, I really do think that this should be the first conversation of many conversations about this particular topic. The city has a couple green energy plans, conservancy plans, environmental plans that are sort of shelved and kind of sitting on the back burner. And I know at least the 2 years I've been here, we've never talked about them. And from what I could tell, they hadn't been touched a couple years before that. So I'm hoping the council can also kind of bring this back at some point in time in the near future to really talk about the bigger goal of getting the city to being zero net energy. I think as a city like Vacaville, with the amount of public space we have, the amount of city facilities, that we easily could implement a solar array that basically pays for itself and essentially gets the city to zero net energy consumption. I'd love to have a discussion about a green fleet. And really, it's just a smart move. It helps lower electricity bills. It saves the taxpayers some money, and it's more environmentally minded. So not necessarily making a motion to add this or anything like that, but I would like to put it on staff's radar that I think this should come back to council soon. We really need to talk about kind of the larger energy conservancy topic in Vacaville. I really like Councilmember Harris's comment on using this to reduce the ratepayers' costs as well. A very smart comment. I think I would be very interested in whatever we can do to use those savings to sort of offset what we're saddling ratepayers with. So good comment. I am in favor of this project.
Thank you, sir. We'll open it up to public. I see at least one hand.
Caller ending in 211, I'll open your mic.
Hi, it's Alicia Minion. I want to thank you for the presentation. And I think in theory, I like the idea, but I like to have a really good understanding of the assumptions that were used and making this recommendation to pursue, a PPA versus owning. And so I don't know if we're going to have any future meetings on this or an opportunity to, discuss the details of this project. I agree with Councilwoman Harris. This is taking up a pretty decent chunk of land for this particular system. And I don't know if there's any opportunity cost in, once you put the solar panels on, they're kind of on for decades, right? And then also I think, the city should be pursuing to be self-sustainable. And so I don't know if it's, maybe owning is better than financing. The savings, as you know, savings is not revenue. However, the savings, if there is, some savings, could that money be used to offset rates? I don't know. I think it's important to know that the savings is in the enterprise fund, not in the, so maybe it could be used to mitigate any future rate increases. So I think that needs to be talked about. And also the piggyback RFP, I'd be really interested in what those terms are and what is the benefit of piggybacking on that particular arrangement, because there might be better arrangement under better terms. I don't know, this isn't my expertise. And then also I hear the federal tax credit, benefits, this type of credit benefits, but as you know, this is a government agency, it's not subject to tax, so it wouldn't necessarily be paying that tax anyway. At least that's my assumption. So I was a little bit confused on that. It just seemed like, well, maybe because it almost seems like a private-public partnership, that the private entity, maybe they could take the tax credit because they're not tax exempt. I'm not sure. I was a little confused on how those savings can be passed on to a government agency when government agencies don't pay tax anyway. So anyway, I look forward to seeing the details of this particular project on another, at a future meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller.
Ian Lee, I'll open your mic.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Hi. I would please correct me if I'm wrong, or clarify, I guess, where the solar installations were to take place. I'm a little unclear on that. Is that available right now?
Is that all you have for a comment? And we'll get your answer after you're done with your comment, sir.
Okay, well, hold off on that answer then. So is it, if hypothetically speaking, if it's based on a plot of land that could be better used for agricultural or housing development, we have plenty of in-city locations where solar panels to this extent could be implemented. Any retail parking lots for added shade to cars, other housings, private housings with financial negotiations could be had. There's plenty of land already established within this city, and I think building on top of that, especially concerning solar energy, is the smartest avenue to go to. I do understand the time frame before this year ends, but I believe given different residents and possibly other local companies and buildings, we could create this depth of solar or sustainable energy without taking up another plot of land. If that's what the original idea was, correct me if I'm wrong. But that's the only question I had, really. I give you the rest of my time.
Thank you, sir. I think I'll go to the city manager. Did you want to explain where this was going to be sited?
Well, I think we have a slide, and Curtis, can you go ahead and walk them through that again?
Sure. Crystal, if you could go to slide, hang on here.
Thanks.
Slide 6. So, if you look kind of in the dashed area, the bottom left, that's the southwest corner of the Easterly Wastewater Treatment Plant property. That land would not be used for housing. It's designed as a buffer because of the location of the wastewater treatment plant. You know, like to have houses right up against that. And so it's always been designed to remain as buffer. The area on the right, kind of that looks like a big dirt field, and that's where the sports complex is potentially going to go. So the use of the property for solar fits in perfectly with our plans, and that offset of roughly 90% of the energy consumed will be very helpful for us.
Thank you. Do we have any other callers? I don't see any other hands.
I see no additional hands.
Great. I'm going to close public comment, bring it back to council for motion.
Well, you know what? I have one more question. I'm really sorry, but I just realized this, if you don't mind. Given the footprint and given the proximity to Travis Air Force Base, has there been any study done that would, indicate that it is safe for, our planes that fly over that area on a regular basis? There's no glare, there's no, type of issue with those planes. Can anybody answer that?
This is Brian Taylor with Forefront. We have done a preliminary FAA glare study on this, and we don't foresee issues.
Okay, but has anybody actually connected with Travis Air Force Base to determine whether they see issues?
Mr. City Manager, can we answer that?
That would be a big concern.
So I believe that the project, Curtis, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the project still has to go through the city's review evaluation process. And so as part of that process, CEQA analysis would be done, and that glare analysis would be finalized and consulted with the Air Force Base and other regulatory agencies as part of that review.
That's correct.
Okay, so even if the city would sign an agreement or sign a contract, it would be contingent upon those findings that there wouldn't be any issue with glare.
Correct.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other council comments, or I'll entertain motion?
I'll move approval, sir. This is Mitch.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. And I have a motion, Mitch Mashburn, second Harris. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Sullivan?
Yes.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Beatty?
Aye.
Councilmember Mashburn?
Aye.
Mayor Roulette?
Aye. We'll move on to number 9A. Mr. City Manager.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the City Council. For purposes of background, actually items 9A, B, C, and D are all kind of related. So I'm going to spend a little bit of extra time on the background on this particular item so that when we get to the subsequent items, we can jump to the recommendations at that point. So the first item that we start with is a follow-up from discussion at your November 10th meeting and your December 1st meeting. Next slide, please. So again, background that I think most people are familiar with. We began transitioning into districts elections beginning in September 28th of 2018. The city adopted an ordinance adding Chapter 2.60 to our Vacaville Municipal Code, establishing a by-district election system for council members. Currently, Chapter 2.60 provides that in the event of a vacancy in an at-large seat during this district transition period, the vacancy can be either filled by appointment or special election in the city at large. At the time, there was no provision for the at-large vacancy to be filled on a by-district basis. As we all know, Councilmember Mashburn was elected to the County Board of Supervisors earlier this year, and he submitted his letter of resignation on November 4th. As a result of that resignation, we now have a vacancy that we've been spending a couple of meetings discussing about how to handle that. Based on a lot of feedback that the council received at the November 10th and the December 1st meeting, it was desired that instead of filling the vacancy at an at-large basis, that it would be preferred that the seat could be filled by district election. Next slide, please. So at the December 1st meeting, I skipped over that piece, but at the December 1st meeting, the City Council introduced for first reading a consideration to amend Chapter 2.60 to allow for the transition period to convert from an at-large to a by-district seat in a specified order. District 2 is proposed to transition first because District 4 is currently occupied by a seated at-large council member. We did include language, however, though, that if there is a subsequent vacancy in the remaining at-large seat in District 4, then that seat would also transition to a by-district seat that would be filled by a resident from District 4. This is the second reading before you tonight, so the proposed amendment furthers, and we believe that the proposed amendment furthers the purposes of the California Voting Rights Act by implementing the districting process on an expedited basis when possible, and ultimately providing for greater access and participation in local government. That's important because this is ties this to ordinance amendment to being related to elections, which means that we do not have to wait the 30 days that you typically have to wait for an ordinance to be effective. Next slide, please. So with that, we're recommending that the City Council by simple motion adopt the subject ordinance. I'll be happy to answer your questions.
Does the council have any questions before I open it up to public comment? Hearing none, we'll open to public comment.
I see no hands at this time.
I'm going to close public comment, entertain motion.
A simple motion about the subject ordinance.
I believe that was Harris and Mashburn. Can we have roll call vote, please?
Vice Mayor Beatty?
Aye.
Councilmember Sullivan?
Yes.
Councilmember Mashburn?
Aye.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Mayor Roulette?
Yes. Next item will be item 9B. Mr. City Manager, I'll go back to you, please.
Okay, thank you, sir. If we can move to the second slide of this item. This item is a follow-up to the December 1st special City Council meeting where the council, as part of the introduction of that first reading of the ordinance, also directed staff to bring back to tonight's meeting a resolution repealing the vacancy policy that was previously discussed. Next slide, please. So once again, there's the familiar background at that I just mentioned at last week's special meeting. The council asked us to bring back the issue of filling the vacancy on an appointment basis. There were a variety of different reasons that were expressed during that time at that meeting to repeal that ordinance and then bring it back later at a future council meeting if so desired. So the attached resolution that you have in your packet tonight includes a recommendation to repeal Resolution 2020-038, which is the resolution that established the vacancy policy for appointments. We have no other policies proposed at this time, but once again, if the council wishes to consider that at a later date, we can certainly bring that back per your direction. So, next slide, please. With that, we recommend that you adopt the subject resolution by simple motion. I'll be happy to answer your question.
Any council comments? Anybody from the public would like to speak on this?
I see no hands at this time.
I'll close public comment, entertain motion.
A simple motion adopt the subject resolution.
Second.
Harris and Mashburn, please roll call vote.
Councilmember Sullivan?
Yes.
Councilmember Mashburn?
Aye.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Beatty?
Aye.
Mayor Roulette?
Aye. 9C, Mr. City Manager, keep going.
Okay, thank you, sir. Next slide, please. Okay. In addition to the items that we just took action on, we need to have the City Council consider rescinding the action of November 10th because that particular action taken by the council at that evening was for an at-large special election. Next slide, please. once again, a lot of the similar background, but I will go back one meeting to November 10th, as I briefly mentioned. That's when the council was first presented with the issue of discussing the process for filling the vacancy as a result of Councilmember Mashburn's resignation letter that was submitted on November 4th. So as a result of that vacancy and the options available to the city council at that time, because our code only allowed for at-large options to fill the vacancy, the council on a 3-2 vote voted to go forward with a special election at large. As a result of tonight's actions on items 9A and 9B, we now do not have that ability to call an at-large election. Next slide, please. As a result, the council must rescind that November 10th action calling for an at-large special election and direct staff to call a special election by district, specifically for District 2, in accordance with the newly adopted ordinance that the council just approved as item 9B. Just to remind folks about the next steps, if you move forward with this action, we will move down to the third bullet, which is where we're at right now, rescinding the November 10th action, moving forward with the call for District 2 special election, which is the next item on tonight's agenda. Beginning tomorrow, we can start the public information process and send out guidelines for running for office and dates that folks can pull and circulate papers. Between January 11th and February 5th, that's when people can pull their papers and circulate and return nomination papers and their candidate statements. And then finally, we get to May 4th, the election, and then ultimately that the victor of that particular election will be seated at the June 8th City Council meeting. So with that, well, I'll just point out that as a result of this action, by changing from an at-large special election vote to a by District 2 vote, we believe that the cost savings will be reduced from approximately $580,000 to $110,000. So with, next slide, please. With that, we have two motions. The first is to rescind the November 10th City Council action to fill the existing City Council vacancy by an at-large all-mail ballot special election. And then also, we're asking you to approve the filling of the existing vacancy by calling a by-district all-mail ballot special election for District 2 in accordance with your newly amended Chapter 2.60 as amended. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any council comments tonight? We'll open up public comment. Any public comment?
I see no hands at this time.
I'll close public comment, entertain motion.
A simple motion, rescind the November 10th City Council action and approve the filling the existing vacancy by calling a by-district all-mail ballot special election.
Second.
I got a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Vice Mayor Beatty?
Aye.
Councilmember Mashburn?
Aye.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Councilmember Sullivan?
Yes.
Mayor Roulette?
Aye. We'll move to item 9D. Mr. City Manager.
Okay, this time I'm going to share the spotlight and ask Michelle Thornburg, our city clerk, to give you the next item, which is a series of resolutions related to calling the special election that you just endorsed and all the other steps that go along with that. So, Michelle?
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. These will be the final resolutions necessary to call the election. Request services of the Solano County Registrar of Voters to assist in conducting that election and then setting the regulations for the candidate statements that will appear in the voters pamphlet for the May 4th special election. As the city manager has gone over, the council has taken actions up till this evening to ensure that they could call this special election, and therefore our recommendation, oh, go ahead and go forward, Crystal, sorry, on the slide. You can go past that one too. So the next step would be to notice, if you approve the actions this evening for these resolutions, the next step would be to notice the election prior to December 29th. The candidates could circulate their nomination papers beginning January 11th through February 5th. The election will occur May 4th, and the seating of the successful candidate will be June 8th. So with that, next slide, our recommendation is by simple motion to adopt the resolutions calling the special election, consolidating with the Registrar of Voters, and setting candidate statement guidelines.
Thank you very much. Any council comments? Any comments from the floor?
I see no hands at this time.
I'll close the comments from the floor, entertain motion.
By simple motion, adopt the subject resolutions.
Second.
I got a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Sullivan?
Yes.
Councilmember Mashburn?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Beatty?
Aye.
Councilmember Harris?
Aye.
Mayor Roulette?
Aye. We'll move to item 9E, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. This last item is a resolution accepting certification of the Solano County Register of Voters regarding the canvass of returns and results of the general municipal election held on November 3rd, 2020, and declaring the results thereof. Our City Clerk, Michelle Thornburg, will provide a brief presentation.
Good evening again. So this resolution will accept the certification of the general municipal election that occurred on November 3rd, 2020, which was to fill municipal offices of the city, and consider the implementation of a cannabis business tax ordinance. Next slide. So on December 3rd, one of the items that was considered was the cannabis business tax ordinance known as Measure V, which was approved with over 64% of the vote and will take effect on January 1st, 2021. Currently, the only cannabis businesses allowed in the city are delivery, so the council could consider other businesses in the future, and if they did, this tax would apply to those businesses. Next slide. For municipal offices, myself and City Treasurer Jay Yerkes ran uncontested, so we were both successfully re-elected to our office. And then the successful candidates for City Council for full terms in Electoral District 1 is Roy Stockton. In District 3, Michael Silva. District 5, Jason Roberts. And for a 2-year term in Electoral District 6, Jeanette Wiley. Next slide. So with the official certification, the recommendation is that the council, by simple motion, adopt the subject resolution, and after that we can have presentations and oaths of office.
Thank you very much. I will open it up to council for any comments before I open it up to the floor.
I had a quick comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Councilmember Sullivan.
Yeah, just a quick comment. I just wanted to extend a really big and sincere thank you to all of the volunteer poll workers across Vacaville. I think there were probably dozens, if not hundreds, who spent days, if not weeks, volunteering in the middle of a pandemic to make sure that the vote was trustworthy and honest and legit and helpful and, you know, all those good things. And I wanted to extend a huge thank you also to the Solano County Elections Office and the Registrar of Voters. I think we had record turnout this year. I'm sure their staff have been working absolutely around the clock. The national kind of temperament right now is, you know, there's a lot of kind of ill will and kind of animus pointed at local elections offices, but I just really wanted to thank them for doing the good work that they do in supporting democracy. So huge thank you to the county staff and a huge thank you to everyone in Vacaville who volunteered in the last election. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilmember Sullivan. Any other comments before I open it up to the public? We'll open it up to the public. Are there any callers? I see one.
Devontae Robinson, I'll open your mic.
All right, so yeah, I just wanted to point out that Measure V did pass with over 60% of the vote. So that should tell you something. It tells you that maybe it's time to think about bringing dispensaries to Vacaville. And before I get off, I just want to say congratulations to Mike Silva, congratulations to Jeanette Wiley, and congratulations to Jason Roberts. Have a nice day.
Any other callers? I see another hand.
Edward Russell, I'll open your mic.
Good evening again. I would just like to say an extreme kudos to Mr. Mike Silva on what he is about to bring to this city in the position that he has acquired through hard work and perseverance. His growth is phenomenal. His vision is phenomenal. I have nothing but high praise for that man. He is doing the people's work. What is absolutely eye-popping that this city should take note of is that out of, I believe it's, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know everything. I think it's about 12, maybe 13, something around that number of elected officials in this city of Vacaville. He is the only non-white person filling any one of those elected seats. So for a town to break their arm, patting themselves on the back, saying how inclusive and diverse they are, well, the out front visual would say the contrary. So I think it's important that that is acknowledged of this absolute just remarkable accomplishment that Mr. Mike Silva has undertaken. And he has my full support. And I would hope that the rest of this town, or at least the ones that claim to say they're about progressive and moving forward, acknowledge what this man has accomplished and sit back and witness the change he is about to bring. Be well, everyone.
Thank you. I don't see any other hands.
Agreed.
I'm going to close public comment, entertain motion.
By simple motion, adopt the subject resolution.
Second.
Harris Mashburn, please roll call votes.
Councilmember Harris.
Yes.
Councilmember Mashburn.
Aye.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Beatty.
Aye.
Mayor Roulette.
Aye. We're going to do the oath of office now.
I think first we were going to go ahead and recognize the outgoing council.
Perfect. I do have 3 proclamations, and then there'll be a few more speakers. I will start with Vice Mayor Raymond Beatty. Vice Mayor Raymond Beatty was the founder of and the executive director of We Love Our City. He was also is a United States Air Force veteran, a member of the American Legion Post 165, a lifetime member of the Air Force Sergeants Association, and the founder of the Vacaville Veterans Hometown Hero Program that we all know and love. Raymond served 2 years on this council, one as vice mayor in 2020. During that time, he served as the Budget Audit Committee, the Travis Regional Armed Forces Committee, Advisory Committee to the California State Prisons, County Homeless Advisory Committee, Greenbelt Authority, Solano Transportation Authority, and the Solano Water Authority. And we thank you, Raymond, for your service. The next proclamation I'm giving tonight, although he's going to stay on this council till the end of the year, but we won't have another council meeting, is Councilmember Mitch Mashburn. Mitch Mashburn goes back a while. He was a planning commissioner back in 2009. He was elected to the city council in 2010, re-elected in 2014, re-elected in 2018, has served as the vice mayor for 2014 and 2018. He is also served our citizens of Solano County for the past 30 years as a Solano County Sheriff. He was elected in 2020 to the Board of Supervisors, District 5, and we thank you for your service, Mitch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And then we have Councilmember Dilena Harris. Dilena Harris was first elected in 2018. She was re-elected in 2012. Excuse me. She was first elected in 2008, re-elected in 2012, and re-elected in 2016. She has served as the vice mayor in 2013 and 2019. Dilena served on almost everything she could, and we do appreciate everything she's done. She served on the Yellow Solano Air Quality Management District, the Travis Community Consortium, the California League of Cities, the Solano Transportation Authority, the Solano County Water Agency, the Solano Economic Development Corporation, the Travis Regional Armed Forces Committee. She was also chair of that committee in 2015-2016. She was honored by Congressman Garamendi as Woman of the Year in 2016, and she will be missed by this council. We thank you very much for your service. And we do have a long list of speakers that would like to recognize you also, Councilmember Harris, and I would like to welcome Ron Turner. He is a field representative for Senator Bill Dodd. Can we play the video, please?
Hi, I'm sorry that I was unable to join you today in recognizing Council Member Dilena Harris for her many accomplishments in her 12 years of public service. She has decided to retire from public life and take on new challenges and spending quality time with her family. And I was told that when she first ran in 2008, none of her 3 children were married, and now they're all married and she has 8 grandchildren. Dilena is an established businesswoman who has served the Vacaville community for more than 30 years. And while in the council, she had stints as vice mayor and served on the Yolo Solano Air Quality Management District, the Travis Regional Armed Forces Committee, Travis Community Consortium, the Vacaville Chamber of Commerce, the California League of Cities, Solano Economic Development Corporation, the Solano Transportation Authority, and the Solano County Water Agency, and many more. Dilena has been the steadfast advocate for business, including growing and maintaining local jobs, as was evidenced by her efforts to bring Icon aircraft to Vacaville. Dilena has never wavered from her convictions. She listens to all sides before making a decision, and knowing that you can't please everybody, she was always able to look to bring people together. I wish Dilena well with her plans to travel with her husband, Rob, and to enjoy all the special moments with her children and grandchildren. I know that Dilena will continue to honorably serve the Vacaville community as we navigate together into this changing and challenging future. Congratulations, Dilena, on your retirement. Best to you for many years of happiness.
Thank you, Senator Dodd. Next, we will have Mayor Emeritus Lynn Augustine, I believe with Chairman to the Travis Community Consortium, and Sandy Pearson. I believe they're going to be on together.
Yeah, hello? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, this is Lynn Augustine. I want to thank the outgoing council members for their service to the council in the city of Vacaville. And of course, my good friend, Dilena Harris. A lot has been said by the previous speakers about everything that she's been involved with, and that's a fact. I'm currently the chair of the Travis Community Consortium, and I will say that Dilena's been there from the beginning. You know, our goals are to provide the needs and the infrastructure for the missions that are there, particularly KC 46 coming in, but also the quality of life issues for airmen, such as reciprocity for people to get ability to serve immediately. A school teacher coming here, for example, with 12 years of experience, maybe in Florida, and then she has to go through certification, recertification. It may take a year and a half. So we're trying to close that gap and let people get jobs who are qualified. She also really owned her small home improvement business for 20 years, and she knows what it takes to sign the front of a check as well as the back of a check. She's been involved in education, healthcare, public relations, government activities of all kinds, and a whole lot more. She's known throughout the entire region, way past the county and out into the Bay Area, for her integrity and her great community spirit, love of Vacaville, and her good service to all the folks and residents here. She's got good friends throughout the whole city and beyond, and I consider myself lucky to have been a good friend of Delenda's as well. So that, and then finally, I would like to thank the incoming council for, putting up their lives and so forth to be a part of the city of Vacaville. It's a great city. I thank the council for continuing to make it a good city. And with that, I'll say farewell, Delena, but I'm hoping that we can have some activities that take care of Vacaville as well. So God bless you. Thank you.
Hi, it's Sandy Person, and thank you, Lynn, for your great comments. Dilena's servant heart has truly set the gold standard in her support of the men and women of Team Travis and Travis Air Force Base. She has long been a valued partner and friend and tireless champion of the Travis Community Consortia, as well as the Travis Regional Armed Forces Committee and all the advocacy efforts at the local, state, and federal level. Dilena's commitment to doing the right thing and getting it done has made her such an outstanding role model. She epitomizes the attributes of character, commitment, and integrity. Her extensive service as a board member for both a private and a public organization ensures the strong foundation for our proud defense communities to survive and thrive regardless of what comes around the bend. Thank you for your leadership and friendship, Dilena.
All right, thank you both. Next up, we have Steve Vacaville, Chairman to the Travis Regional Armed Forces. Steve, do we have you online?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Yes, this is Steve Ansel with the Travis Regional Armed Forces Committee, and Fred Zaragoza is actually our current chair of the TRAF. But Diana, we thank you very much and congratulate you on 12 years of wonderful service to the city of Vacaville as a city council member. And we understand you're being promoted now to help Rob spend a little more time with some grandchildren. So we do congratulate you on that. For those of you on the city council, you may not remember, but Delena was actually our 2014 Volunteer of the Year for the TRAF. She won the Steve Carbonero Award, and she did serve, as mentioned, as the chair of the TRAF 2015-2016. And she might still be the chair, but we have term limits on the TRAF. So we did hand the chair position over to someone else. But even though she's no longer the chair, she has kept Travis in her heart, as we saw this evening, and she's asking questions about the impact on Travis Air Force Base. And I remember my time serving with Delena on the TRAF Executive Committee. She always had foremost in her heart great care and compassion for the servicemen and servicewomen at the base and their families. She was always very dedicated to make sure that the communities were doing what they could to support the men and women at the base, and also appreciated the contribution that the service people at Travis give to our local communities. So, Delena, even though you're no longer the chair of the TRAF, I know you stayed very involved with the base, and I know the same will happen for the city of Vacaville. Even though you will no longer be a city council member, you will still be very involved with your city. We congratulate you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next up, we have Matt Earnhardt, Executive Director for the Yolo Solano Air Quality Management District. Matt, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Mayor, for the introduction. On behalf of the board and staff of the Yolo Solano Air Quality Management District, we'd like to thank Councilmember Harris for her service. She has served on the board for the past 10 years and was elected to serve on all 5 of our standing committees. She was also selected by our peers to be vice chair and chair of our 14-member board. Councilmember Harris was excellent to work with, and I know staff was very disappointed to hear she was not running for re-election. I think the one thing I'll remember most about Councilmember Harris was her dedication to the city of Vacaville, its citizens and its businesses, and all the work she did in that regard. So thank you again, Councilmember, for your service, and we wish you best in your future endeavors.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Councilmember Harris is going to have a video.
Good evening. After 12 years, this is my final council meeting serving as a representative of the city of Vacaville. I want to thank our city manager, our city clerk, Wayne Covington, Crystal Welty, staff for ensuring that I had this virtual venue in which to share my final remarks. I'm so pleased to have my family and my close friends here to support me in this last goodbye, if you will. I spent a considerable amount of time thinking about and determining what I wanted to say and how I wanted to say it. I'm not going to spend a lot of time, reviewing the highs and lows of the last 12 years. I'd really rather focus my time on the city and where we are today and where I hope we'll be in the near future. I want to acknowledge that it's been a very difficult year for our country and this community. We've all been stretched in a variety of ways due to COVID. We faced fears and uncertainty, and it's been a challenge. Like cities across our nation, we've also had our share of racial tension, political divide. There's been isolation, there's been unemployment, distance learning, uncertainty over finances, economic loss. It's been a lot that we've all dealt with. This year we've been forced, if you will, due to the circumstances, to really take a hard look at ourselves and our city. Many of us are examining ourselves and the city, wanting to understand where we are and what we can do to help our friends and neighbors and to find common ground. We're asking ourselves questions such as, how can we work better together to solve community issues? Who is missing from the discussion? How do we build and maintain community trust? Are our actions fair and equitable? Is transparency an issue? Do we respect one another? Can we have healthy disagreement and still move forward in community? If not, why? What are the barriers and how will we overcome them? Our community, I believe, is at a crossroads. These questions and many others must be asked in an effort to strengthen this community and find that common ground. And I believe we can do it. It will take our leadership and every person who calls Vacaville home to be participants in finding those solutions. To our current council, thank you for making the right decision last week to reverse course on two issues that have deeply divided our community and this council. Publicly, the former decisions were perceived as attempts to circumvent democracy and maintain power. Whether that was the intended purpose or not, this council is better than that. The first corrected decision is giving the people what they have been asking repeatedly for and what they expected us to deliver, and that is fair representation on the City Council from District 2. Corrected decision number 2, the promise of overturning a horribly conceived City Council appointment policy that created significant distrust in the community and division on the council. Thank you to this current council for making the right decision for the citizens of Vacaville. Besides me, 2 other council members will be moving on tonight. I wish my colleagues, Council Members Beatty and Mashburn, well in their new endeavors. Members Roulette and Sullivan will remain. Thank you for your service. I wish you success, because your success and that of the new council will equal success for our beloved city. To the 4 new council members, thank you for your willingness to serve. I'm going to offer a few comments from this seasoned position that I hope you will receive as intended, that of encouragement and strength in your journey. First, you were elected for your stated commitment to your district, the city, and its people. You were elected to be leaders, not followers. Do not be afraid to openly question and debate issues. That is your job. You are equals, from the mayor to the newest elected city official, all equal. Remember that. You've been given the public trust and an opportunity to prove your ability to be independent decision makers and willing team players, to put the interest of the people above self-interest. You have great city staff that will help you and help you serve well. You have those who have come before you who are willing to help and support. The voters have shown their faith and confidence in you. Remember that as you move forward. There will be days your work will be hard. You will be faced with competing interests and make decisions that will disappoint some and please others. You cannot make everyone happy. Lead with compassion, dignity, humility, grace, and integrity. In so doing, even those who may not like your decisions will have respect for you. I wish you well and that you find great satisfaction and success in your new role. To city department leaders and staff, it's been a real pleasure working with you. I've been proud to partner with you as we sought to do what is right for our community. Your professionalism, skill, courage, and commitment have served our city well. Thank you. I will miss you and wish you most success. To my colleagues and staff and other agencies that I've had the privilege to work alongside to represent our city. Serving with you has been a rewarding experience and one that I will remember fondly. Thank you for the opportunity. To those who have supported me, thank you for having faith and confidence in my leadership. It has been an honor and a privilege to serve and represent you. To my family and my closest friends, my journey in public service has been very rewarding, sometimes heartbreaking, and very challenging. It's been the most challenging of my leadership roles to date, but I would not change a minute of it. I could not have done this job without you and your unwavering love and support. I've asked a lot of you over the years. I've missed out on certain family events or been late or distracted by the work for the city, but you've never complained. You've always been there for me, supported me, you've encouraged me, and I love you for that, and I appreciate you. To my husband, you are my rock. You have been kind, gracious, so generous, patient, and nothing short of amazing. I owe you, and I love you. It's been wonderful. It's been a great opportunity to serve. God bless you all, and God bless Vacaville.
Thank you very much.
Yay!
Thank you very much. Next, we have the Deputy City Clerk, Sheila Ernst, to administer the oath of office for Michelle Thornbrew and City Clerk Jay Yerkes. Excuse me, Michelle Thornbrew, City Clerk, and Jay Yerkes, City Treasurer.
Good evening. Please individually state your name.
Michelle Thornbrew.
Hi, this is Jay Yerkes.
Please repeat after me. I do solemnly swear.
I do solemnly swear.
I do solemnly swear.
To support and defend.
To support and defend.
To support and defend.
The Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution of the United States.
And the Constitution of the State of California.
And the Constitution of
the State of California.
Against all enemies.
Against all enemies.
Against all enemies.
Foreign and domestic.
Foreign and
domestic.
And I will bear true faith and allegiance.
And I will bear true faith and
allegiance.
To the Constitution of the United States.
To the Constitution of the United
States.
And the Constitution of the State of California.
And the Constitution of the State of
California.
That I take this obligation freely.
That I take this obligation
freely.
Without any mental reservation.
Without any mental reservation.
Or purpose of evasion.
Or purpose of evasion.
And that I will well and faithfully.
And that I will well and faithfully.
Discharge the duties.
Discharge the duties.
Upon which I'm about to enter.
Upon which I'm about to enter.
Congratulations on your appointments.
Thank you.
Next up, we'll have our newly appointed clerk, newly elected city clerk, Michelle Thornbrew, to administer the oath of office to all four of our newly elected officers.
Thank you, Mayor. If I could have our new council members prepared to do the oath, I will call on you by district and have you each individually state your name, and then you can collectively repeat after me the oath of office. So District 1.
Roy Stockton.
District 3.
Michael Silva.
District 5.
Jason Roberts.
And District 6.
Jeanette Wiley.
Please repeat after me. I do solemnly swear.
I do solemnly swear.
To support and defend.
To support and defend.
The Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution of the United States.
And the Constitution of the State of California.
And the Constitution of the State of California.
Against all enemies.
Against all enemies.
Foreign and domestic.
Foreign and domestic.
And I will bear true faith and allegiance.
And I will bear true faith and allegiance.
To the Constitution of the United States.
To the Constitution of the United States.
And the Constitution of the State of California.
And the Constitution of the State of California.
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter. Congratulations.
Congratulations, all of you. We will move to item 10, reports of city council. I'll give each one of the new council members an opportunity to say something, if you please. I'll start with District 1, Councilmember Stockton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am beyond grateful for everybody's support through the recent campaign, and I remain committed to working with this council and the citizens to find community-driven solutions that are customized for the challenges that Vacaville is facing. I'd like to thank my campaign team, volunteers, neighbors, and friends for their dedication and hard work. I want to thank my wife, Shauna, and our son, Tyler, and my family for their prayers, love, and patience. None of this would have been possible without them and their support. And most importantly, I would like to thank all of the citizens who trusted me, believed in me, and voted for me to lead our community in District 1 in a positive direction. So now the real work begins, but I know that together we'll see Vacaville through the challenges ahead and protect the quality of life that the Vacaville community deserves. Look forward to serving the citizens of Vacaville and working with everyone on this council to make Vacaville the best place that it can be. Thank you.
Thank you, council member. Council member from District 3, Michael Silva.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, I want to thank my late father. It hurts that he's not here, and it hurts, for the having to grow up without a father for the past 25 years and by myself trying to find out how to be a father and a good husband along the way. This win isn't, some comments were made earlier about, the fact that I won and I achieved. None of that could have been possible without those who help support me. And that includes my mother currently with Alzheimer's. I wish I can be there in person to show an Alzheimer pin that I have, just to bring awareness to a lot of our elders who are struggling and the families that are out there struggling to meet their needs. I also want to thank my godparents who also helped raise me. Both my parents, when I was younger, they worked some long days at American Home Foods, a place that allowed a lot of families to earn a middle-class income and support their families and leave a legacy that we have all been a benefactor of. And I know that companies like that doesn't come for granted. And the ability and the role that we as council members and we as a city and we as a community pull together to support the fact that we can bring in and support good businesses that take care of our community and take care of our workers is really fundamental to one aspect of the many facets that we embark upon. I want to thank Mitch Mashburn, Delena Harris, and Raymond Beatty for their past service. We're going to be walking and filling in their footsteps and going through the ups and downs of all that. And so I truly want to make sure that they know that I appreciate their service. I want to thank all the candidates who ran. It's not easy, as we all know, putting ourselves, our families out there, hearing different things that are being said that aren't true. If anybody has any concerns, just reach out to us. I'm really, truly excited to serve with the mayor. I'm really, truly excited to serve with Nolan, Roy Stockton, Jeanette Wiley, Jason Roberts. We are going to have a diverse, new, fresh perspective council that isn't necessarily here to throw anything, up for loop, but we're truly committed on continuously improving what we have and how we move into the future. And I'm excited to be a part of a team to do that. We obviously cannot do it alone, and I truly look forward to working with the community to make that happen. Just a couple last points. I didn't expect to run for city council. That was not my goal. But seeing the great work that's done at our school district and all our schools really throughout the city, you have our superintendents, James Shemaya, Ed Santapadre, Sasha Bigel, our assistant soups, their teams are absolutely tremendous in trying to serve 13,000 students just in that facet of our education system. And some of the things that they struggle with is how to meet these other issues that relate to poverty, relate to things that families like mine and families that had it even worse than mine that had to endure. And that's really what helped motivate me to step into this role. And what I believe is what a lot of other voters actually resonated with too. How do we start implementing policies? How do we start creating sustainable neighborhoods? How do we start bringing and building bridges to actually address these issues that not only make a stronger school system, but actually make a stronger community? And that comes through more affordable housing. That comes through the ability to own a home. That comes through having an opportunity for better income. And all of these things that we want and need, those are attainable. The American dream is here, and if we work together, we can make it happen. And I know we're going to have a city council that's committed to that, and I'm excited to serve. So thank you all.
Thank you, council member. Council member from District 5, Jason Roberts.
Good evening. Just want to say thank you to the residents of District 5 for supporting me and taking faith and trust me to represent the district. Also want to thank those that supported the campaign, both in District 5, in Vacaville, and friends that came in to help out from all over the country. Moving forward, I'd really like to start by bringing clear, open communication with the city, with the public figures, let the community know what's happening. Really like to see and host regular town hall meetings within the various districts on topics that are pertinent to the district and also matters that are part of the entire city. With that, I would like to bring like independent, data-driven decisions to do what's best for the most amount of people in the city as possible. Thank you for your time and hoping to do some good work in the city. Thank you.
Thank you, council member. Council member District 6, Jeanette Wiley.
Good evening. I want to thank all the voters in this past election. Voting is so important, and even in the pandemic, people were able to get their ballots returned at great numbers. And I'm really pleased with the action earlier this evening that the current council took to honor the voting rights of the citizens and to listen to the voices that were raised and to the people that called in and the petitions and things. I also want to have a great big thank you to all the volunteers who helped in my campaign, because it was not something that I did alone. There were volunteers all along the way that were so instrumental in the win. They also talked to other people in their neighborhood because communication is key to success. I welcome the opportunity to serve on the Vacaville City Council. Mine is a 2-year term, so it's going to be a quick learning curve. And I will be calling on people to help out and provide information. I do feel like all the candidates that ran this year were interested in the same thing. They just want the best for Vacaville, and I'm honored to be the person to represent District 6. I am eager to see what this new council will accomplish in our time together. I feel like we all want to listen to each other and listen to the people of Vacaville and have excellent communication and look at what the priorities are for the people of Vacaville. I do want to say that I think the district elections and having 7 people on the council will be a benefit so that all of Vacaville can thrive. So thank you very much for the opportunity to serve and be part of the Vacaville City Council.
Thank you, council member, and I do welcome all 4 of you. I do look forward to exciting things coming up in our future. The next item is 11, reports to city manager. Do you have anything, Mr. City Manager?
Well, if it's okay, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to just take this opportunity to thank outgoing council members Harris, Mashburn, and Vice Mayor Beatty for their dedicated years of service and for their entrusting me with the opportunity to serve in this capacity. It's been a pleasure and an honor to serve you, and I wish you all the best in your future endeavors. And I'd also like to welcome the 4 new council members that we just swore in. Yeah, I'm looking forward to doing some great things with you all and doing the best for Vacaville. So with that concludes my comments.
Thank you, sir. I just want to let the public know, I still see we have about at least 34 people on the Zoom attending. We just want you to stay tuned. I'm going to adjourn, but we're going to open up with the new city council immediately. So just stay there. You don't have to log on. And with that, I would say good night, Vacaville. Okay, I would like to open the agenda for special called meeting for the Vacaville City Council, December 8th. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Mashburn?
Here.
Councilmember Sullivan?
Here.
Councilmember Stockton?
Here.
Councilmember Silva?
Here.
Councilmember Roberts?
Here.
Councilmember Wiley?
Here.
And Mayor Rolette?
Here. If you can stand with me for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we will move to public hearing item 3A. Mr. City Manager, can you start us off, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and members of the new council, welcome. So this item for business is consideration and introduction of an ordinance that would add Chapter 2.65, Campaign Contribution Limits and Regulations to Title II of the Vacaville Municipal Code regarding consideration of campaign contribution limits. Next slide, please. Okay, so a little bit of background. So in October of 2019, the California State Legislature enacted Assembly Bill number 571, which amended the Political Reform Act to add default campaign contribution limitations for elected officials. Specifically, AB 571 states that if a local government does not have campaign contribution regulations in effect by January 1st of 2021, then local candidates will be subject to the same limitation as candidates for elective state offices. Beginning on January of next year, that contribution limit will be $4,900 per election per person. Person includes individuals, companies, corporations, committees, etc. Currently, the city does not have any regulations regarding campaign contribution limits. So the council may enact its own regulations and limits at any time to maintain local control and to meet other transparency goals of the city. It should be noted that as soon as the city does enact its own regulations, they will supersede the default state regulations. Now, as a result of multiple actions from the regularly scheduled meeting that we just concluded tonight, the council has called for a by-district all-mail special election scheduled for May 4th, 2021. Next slide, please. So with that impending special election date approaching, staff believed that the subject of campaign contribution limits was an important matter for this current council to discuss before January 1 and the new default limits went into effect. The reason for that is that any interested candidate for the upcoming special election can begin to collect campaign contributions immediately and should be aware of any impending limitations. So we've actually identified a couple of different alternatives here for the council's consideration because there are no prescribed standards here. This is strictly a policy decision by the new council, and we have given you some alternatives for your consideration to discuss. We've gone into a little bit more detail than the staff report in terms of what we've found when we polled other cities and checked in with other agencies on how they handle this. And so based on the research we pulled together, we believe we have three alternatives for you to use going forward. The first one is do nothing at this time and allow the state's contribution limit of $4,900 per election per person to take effect on January 1. Alternative 2 is to have a discussion tonight and agree upon a specified dollar value. And we've thrown out a couple of dollar amounts, but these are just examples for the council's consideration. Any other dollar value could be, that as long as it's agreed upon by the majority of the council, could also be used. We are asking or suggesting that if the council does establish a limit, dollar limit, that you pay close attention to the fact that we do have two different types of elections. We have district elections, and then we also have citywide elections, including the mayor, the city clerk, and the city treasurer. So if you do consider separate dollar values, we've included in the draft ordinance an opportunity to put different dollar values because the citywide elections could be considered more costly. Finally, alternative 3 is adopt an ordinance that does not include any campaign contribution limitations, which is consistent with the city's historical and current practice. Next slide, please. So the next steps, again, because we're trying to get this out for any potential candidates before the efforts start on the May 4th election. Tonight, we would introduce the first reading of the ordinance amendment. January 12th, we would, at our regularly scheduled meeting, we would ask you to do the second reading and adopt the ordinance amendment. And finally, the ordinance does require 30 days, and so it would be effective on February 11th. Next slide, please. So with that, we're asking that you take a moment to consider the different alternatives and have a discussion about which method or any other alternative that the council decides upon. Once you reach consensus, we would recommend that you would include that into the adopted ordinance and by title, introduce the subject ordinance, including the council determined contribution limits for first reading tonight. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Typically, I like to go to public comment, but I do like to have the council, if they want to jump in now, before the public comment, but I will be bringing it back to the council to comment. So if anyone from the city council would like to comment now, you're able to. If not, I'm going to open it up to public comment, and then I'll bring it back to the city council.
I have some background questions, Mayor. This is Sullivan.
Councilmember Sullivan, go ahead, sir.
So this is probably to the city manager or possibly city attorney. So two questions. The first is, I'm probably mixing up resolution with something else. Wasn't there an issue with reading, doing first reading, second reading, or adopting at a special meeting? Didn't we have to change things around last meeting because of we couldn't do a resolution hearing at a special meeting? Maybe I'm mixing up motions or mixing up items, but I believe there was a reason we had to do that last time. Does that come into play this time is question number one. Question number two is, can we have a little background? I mean, the state didn't just come up with this just for no reason. What is the intention behind this rule? Where did it come from? Why are they asking for it? What is the spirit of this particular state law? Kind of what's the motive behind the state asking us to do this? So those are my two questions.
Mr. City Manager?
Yes, thank you. So I can definitely give you a stronger answer on the first question, which is that the adoption of the ordinance amendment requires a regularly scheduled meeting. So that's why we're able to introduce it tonight at a special meeting and then have you follow through on January 12th at the regularly scheduled meeting for adoption. With regards to the yes. With regards to the background behind the AB 571, I really don't have a lot to offer in terms of the background other than the limited information that's provided with the legislation, which was really just to be consistent with state practices and, so that they can try to keep a handle on spending limits, essentially. And so they, as to why they did that and saw the need for it, I do not have that information at my disposal at this time.
Okay, any other council members, or I'll open it up to public comment.
I have a question, Mayor. This is Mike Silva.
Mr. Silva, Councilmember Silva, please go ahead.
Just want to clarify, can this ordinance be changed at any time? So by the January, okay.
Yeah, we would have to bring it, we'd have to agendize it and bring it back. So yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, this is Councilmember Stockton.
Councilmember Stockton, go ahead.
This question maybe is more for the city attorney, but I read through the AB 571 and in section 485-301 sub E of the general, of the government code, it discusses that there are no limitations to a person's ability to donate to their own personal campaign. Is that something that is set in stone or that we would decide upon today as well?
Thank you, Councilmember Stockton. That is not part of today's ordinance that's before you. It just affects outside contributions, not candidate's own contribution to his own campaign, his or her own campaign.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other council members, or I'll open it up to public comment? We'll open it up to public comment. I see a bunch of hands.
Open your mic.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you for your time, council members and Roy. Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay.
Is that all you wanted to comment on? Sir?
I think he's muted again.
Oh, Ian, I believe you're muted again. Okay, why don't we go to the next caller and we'll come back.
Open your mic.
Thank you.
Hello. So the three alternatives given in this staff report are either go with the limit of 4,900 per person that can contribute, or go higher, go 10,000 or 25,000, or the third option is no limits at all. So I thought I would go back to the reason that this legislation was enacted. It was enacted to prevent corruption or the appearance of corruption. Citizens are disenfranchised when there's pay to play. And that's what we're talking about is in counties and cities where there have not been imposed limitations on contributions, candidates for elective office in those jurisdictions sometimes raise 40% or more of their total campaign funds from a single contributor. I'm reading from the preface to the legislation. A system allowing unlimited contributions to a candidate for elective county or city office creates the risk and perception that elected officials in those jurisdictions are beholden to their contributors and will act in the best interest of those contributors at the expense of the people. So the opposite of what Diana Harris was talking about, when you have large contributions, you're acting perhaps, there's the possibility you'll act on behalf of those contributors rather than on behalf of the people. The state has an interest in preventing corruption, well, so does the city. Same interest. And so when we look at data-driven analysis, we need to look at what actually what factors are at play here. We have a state limit of 4,900 because, at the state level, you have hundreds of thousands of people voting for one candidate or even millions. We don't have that at the city level. We have maybe 10,500 to 11,000 people voting. Whole different ball game. We do not need 5,000 contributions per person. Relevant factors such as the size of the city, how much it typically costs to run an election, and the cost of media and staffing. Well, I ran a very low cost campaign, but you know, 12,000 to 15,000 is a reasonable amount to spend on a campaign. You don't need 4,900. The cities of Davis and City of Irvine, they have smaller contribution limits. There's 150 for Davis, 530 for City of Irvine. Candidates receiving 3,000 to 4,000 from developers and contractors in the last district campaign amassed a fortune. One candidate, you know, had approximately $50,000. You do not need $50,000 in a district campaign.
Hey, Wendy, I was trying to give you as much time as I can, but you're over your 3 minutes. I apologize. Do we have the next caller?
James Robbins, I'll open your mic.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Great, thank you very much. I'd like to continue the discussion that the previous contributor was sharing. I am a resident of District 2, and I'd like to point out that I believe that the election is for the people and by the people, and for that reason, that the contribution limit should reflect that. In discussions with some of my neighbors and so forth, we've kind of thought that maybe a $500 limit would be more appropriate. And so I would encourage the council to continue the premise of open communication and transparent government and keep the contribution limits down to a number that reasonable people can contribute, to avoid having our candidates be influenced by larger organizations, contractors, developers, and organizations like that that have bigger pockets than the general citizenry does. So I appreciate your time. I hope you'll consider this, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Next caller, please.
Ravante Robinson, I'll open your mic.
All right, how y'all doing? All right, so I'm about to say something that might shock everyone. I am calling in favor of no limits, and let me explain that. So I ran in 2018, and I used like barely any money, probably a couple $100, and I still ended up getting over 5,000 votes. So you know, it's kind of like people real recognize real, basically, is what I'm trying to say. In this past election, someone named Raymond Beatty, he got a whole lot of thousands of dollars and spent a whole lot of money. He spent a whole lot of money last time too, and he lost both times. So, I mean, I think all we need is really transparency. If people are able to see that you're getting $10,000 from PG&E, or you're getting money, thousands of dollars from developers, or if you're getting thousands of dollars from the police, then they can see where your allegiances are. And it actually helps us. We're in an age of information where we can look everything up. So, I mean, like, corruption is more easily caught out these days. So it's like, I'm in favor of having no limits. Like, if PG&E wants to donate $1 million to someone, then everyone would be able to know that this person is getting $1 million from PG&E, and they're probably not trustworthy. That's all I got to say.
Thank you. Next caller.
Marjorie Kelly, I'll open your mic.
Thank you. I would encourage the council to adopt a much lower limit than $4,900. I do appreciate what Mr. Robinson said about sometimes money does not make a difference in a campaign, but sometimes it does. And I think special interests having outsized influence is not healthy. I happen to live in an area that has a large infill project right now under consideration. And the idea that a developers could have more influence than the people who are going to be most affected by this infill project is not a welcome idea. So I would encourage the council to consider setting a limit, say perhaps something around $500 or $1,000. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller.
Edward Russell, I'll open your mic.
Good evening again. I think it's a no-win situation. You can have $10,000 limit. You could have unlimited amount. You could have $500. Where I find a problem to be is if a retired police officer, police chief, anybody related to law enforcement can supply a potential candidate with X amount of dollars. What is absolutely mind-boggling is that person can take that money, go knock on doors, and ask for their support, but not necessarily be serving those people he knocked on doors for or she knocked on doors for, begging for their vote, because now they're in the pocket to this particular person. So I think that leads me into bringing in the city attorney to, I think this is a great opportunity to step in and put a limit and stop the availability of law enforcement supporting candidates, because when policy time comes and changes need to happen and police need to be held accountable, well, if a candidate has been endorsed by law enforcement, why would they even try to hold law enforcement accountable? They supported them, and vice versa. It goes both ways. So I think the city attorney really needs to interject the law and address this conflict of interest, because I can't really see how it can be legal. A law enforcement agency, such as a police association, fund a candidate, that candidate gets elected, now they're in that seat. Why would they have any inclination to ask the police association to change policies or address any concern that the normal citizen? So I'll get the answer from the city attorney. Thank you.
Okay, next caller.
Caller ending in 211, I'll open your mic.
Hi, it's Alicia Minion again. So I want to echo what Wendy said, and this is very important because you definitely want to prevent corruption, and you certainly don't want the appearance of it. But bottom line is when someone gives you a contribution, especially if it's a special interest, like a vendor or developer, anybody that does business or is going to financially benefit from a decision that a council member makes, I think that it's important that there not be any conflict of interest. And many cities, other than the ones that Wendy mentioned, like the city of Davis, city of Irvine, Pleasant Hill, many cities have contribution limits for this very reason. In addition to the limits on contributions, some cities also have enacted pay-to-play rules. The state actually has a pay-to-play rule. So, for example, if there's a contribution, say it's from a city vendor, say it's Recology, I'm just going to throw the name out there, then depending on the timing of the contribution, the council member would have to recuse themselves from approving that contract. I think that also needs to be considered, especially if council decides to have no limits. I really think that council members should recuse themselves if they're approving contracts for a party that contributed to their campaign in amounts like greater than 500, because then anything over 500, I think you start to lose objectivity. There's bias, and there is influence. And so, in addition, the other concern is, not only are there campaign contributions you have to worry about, it could be that someone that has a financial interest in the decision that the council member is going to make might make a contribution to a charity that's somehow affiliated with a special interest. For example, a union might have a charity. Like the Vacaville, I'm not saying that they're doing anything wrong. Like the Vacaville Fire Union, I think they have a charity fund. Or there's the POA, and then there's like a nonprofit being created for the new business park. So these are things that could potentially create conflicts of interest. And I think, I really think we need policies and procedures. The city does to kind of monitor this particular situation and to make sure and to really identify these conflicts of interest and really discourage them. And I think the first step is to limit the campaign contribution to $500. Special interest has no business in influencing our election. It needs to be by the people, for the people. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller, please.
Sarah Palmisano, I'll open your mic.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
I just wanted to echo what Wendy, the gentleman after her, and Alicia said about a $500 limit on election donations. I do have a question. Is that per candidate or is that per election cycle?
Are you done with your question? Or are you done with your 3 minutes, ma'am?
I specifically just wanted to support a low dollar election cycle, I guess, donation. Seems like you're not particularly interested in engaging with the public tonight. Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Mrs. City Attorney, can we answer the question?
Yes, the limit is per candidate, per person, per candidate, per election. So for instance, somebody could contribute, if there was a limit, say a $500 limit, they could contribute $500 to each candidate in one election.
Okay, thank you. Next caller, please.
Julia Brobson Thomas, I'll open your mic.
Hi there. So a couple things. One, I would like to know if there can be a different limit for the mayoral race versus the 5-district council elections. Quite frankly, they are just different animals when it comes to fundraising and the amount of money needed to run a solid campaign. I would say that $1,000 limit on a mayoral race and $250 on a council race would be plenty of money. $500 if you have to, but I mean, the amount of money that is needed for a district election is just, quite frankly, not as much as you would need for a full citywide election. So the fact that you have people raising $30,000 for, a district that has 10,000 people in it is pretty ridiculous. But the other thing is that the amount that is set should be reflective of how much the general cost of the election is. So so I would say $250 for council and $1,000 for mayoral. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller, please.
Troy Lawrence, I'll open your mic.
Yes, can I be heard?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. My name is Troy Lawrence. I've been working here with your city council for over 6 years now, trying to bring cannabis and cannabis awareness to this community. I'm very happy to see that the people have stood for something that I felt was circumvented for over 5 years, which was the vote to bring cannabis businesses to the city. So I thank the citizens. I welcome the new city council members and gladly open my arms to myself, my team, the James Anthony Group, my lawyers who I have presented and brought to the city council and spoken to. And unfortunately, not one single business card was taken, not one single phone call was returned. I really look forward to trying to help with what I'm seeing in the city the past few years, and unfortunately, presently, with the anxiety, with the protesting and things like that. I'm hoping that some of the cannabis businesses that I do contribute to and help bring, which I did do to Solano, to other counties, which we did bring to Suisun County. I really hope to help the anxiety and the stuff that I'm seeing with the people in this city, as well as help a lot of the opiate abuse that I'm sure is going on everywhere I go. I really extend myself and my team to extend to help with any of the zoning and planning. I've already been paying on my facility for many years, and waiting patiently for many years to open business to help this city and community. I hope that my facility is included in the zoning, and I extend any help and any assistance that my team or myself can help to contribute to what the people have voted for now, presently, again, 5 years later. And I thank the city, I thank the council for putting it on the ballot, and I definitely extend myself and ask for any help. And thank you, and welcome the new city council.
Thank you, Troy. Next caller, please.
Ian Lee, I'll open your mic.
Hello. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Okay. Going back to campaign contributions, it was a little bit weird that is a subject to bring up regarding this like hypothetical conspiracy theory of like corporations within organizations with agendas. Yeah. Especially when, as Robante had pointed out earlier, the people can easily research and Google where contributions come from and what those establishments or institutions mean to the people. So I'm a little bit iffy on this, to be honest. How much should a campaign cost? And you what 180 amount could be bloated, especially given the fact that you're considering an all-around election rather than a district-only election. But that's fine. I really didn't have much of an opinion on this, to be honest, on campaign and contributions. It was just curious that you brought it up as a subject concerning this. I will give you the rest of my time if you want to explain and respond to a citizen, because I have noticed you've not responded to a couple callers. And if you want to respond to their predicaments or concerns, that's the rest of my 3 minutes, if you are willing.
Thank you very much. Mr. City Manager, would you like to respond to that gentleman?
Certainly. So the reason that we're bringing this item up is because of the impending May 4th, 2021 election. And given the time limits involved associated with proposing an ordinance amendment that would select a different amount other than the default state limit that takes effect January 1 of next year, we wanted to give the council the opportunity to have this dialogue tonight, because the next regular opportunity to have that conversation will be January 12th next year, which we believe was a little too late.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Next caller, please.
Nancy Fletcher, I will open your mic.
Good evening. My preference is also for a lower limit. I believe a lower limit would keep a candidate accountable to who they should be serving their constituents. I would encourage the council to consider a limit of around $500. If the council decides to set up two separate limits, I support the suggestion outlined by a previous caller, setting the limit below the default limit. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller, please.
Danielle Shea, I'll open your mic.
Good evening. Welcome to the new council members. I'm really excited to have you guys here and participating. I just want to speak really quickly. I understand that this issue is prompted by the state ordinance limiting elections. I think that it's a reaction to that. I think that we have an opportunity, though, to be proactive rather than reactive. I think a lot of people spoke tonight that are more concerned about who is contributing and why they're contributing than necessarily dollar amounts. I think it's more important to limit special interest groups within the city, particular police unions, whose funding and salaries are decided by city council. So limits and regulations on who is allowed to fund city council and local government campaigns, I think is really important. And you can do this just because the state, is requiring it. And if we don't make a decision, it's going to, result in a $4,900 limit. But if you really want to listen to the people this evening, I think that you could go a little further and really make some campaign reform tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller, please.
Beatriz Cadenas, I will open your mic.
Hello, I wanted to congratulate the new city council members. I am part of District 3 and I'm so excited to have Mike Silva and to finally have someone who's representing District 3. It's long overdue. And I also want to add to the conversation about contributions and there being a limit. I've really enjoyed the discussion that has happened today with the people who have called in, because I think there's been a lot of good points presented. On one side, I do agree that the people will see, the people can do research and the people will see who's contributing to what campaign. And Ravante said, real recognizes real, which I completely agree with. And that is why we have city council. We have this new slate of city council members because there was contributions. There was very high contributions from distinct organizations and, the police and firefighters and companies, corporations from Concord, to different candidates who didn't get on city council, who weren't elected. But I think that it's also a conversation. I think it's a very important point to talk about who, like Edward said, who is contributed and who is being allowed to contribute so much money. I encourage listeners and city council members to look up the contributions for the candidates who were elected and the candidates who were not elected, and look at the numbers and look who contributed to what campaigns and how much was contributed and why did some candidates get like thousands of dollars from, these different corporations and these different organizations, these different advisory committees, and why others didn't, and why did it vary from district? These are all questions that we have to be asking ourselves. What's the interest behind electing a city council member behind electing a candidate onto the city council? So I don't know. I don't know if it's best to have a minimum or people do their research. People do their research and people see where the money is going and who is really for the people and who has a campaign that has small donations, which means they've been communicating with the people.
Ma'am, your 3 minutes is up.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And I believe Lynn Upchurch has already went. Is that right, Crystal?
I don't believe so this time.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Let's put Lynn in.
Lynn, I'll open your mic.
I still see her mic shut off.
Excuse me, Mayor. I would suggest.
Hi, Lynn.
Can you
Did
hear
you
me?
already speak? Yeah, Lynn, did you already speak on this topic tonight? Did I already give you 3 minutes?
No, I haven't spoken tonight at all.
Okay, I apologize. Go ahead, Lynn.
I would suggest that a contribution limit of $500 per campaign contribution is more in keeping with the intent of what district elections are all about. It's the grassroots support of citizens for candidates from their own neighborhood. The problem that I foresee with the $4,900 maximum is that it is likely to lead to more and more support from outside the district in which the election is taking place, and specifically from corporate entities trying to score points with a potential council member's future votes. Large gifts are like buying influence on the city council by making candidates beholden to the donor. We see this at the state and federal levels of government, and that kind of influence has not led to better legislation, but in fact to gridlock and politicians who pay more attention to their donors than to their constituents. Landowners and real estate developers in particular will attempt to get approval for a project by making large gifts to ensure that city council members vote to support the approval of their projects. So I urge you not to approve this resolution with the $4,900 as presented tonight, but instead look at a much, much, much smaller limit. And what might be good just because it's state government is not necessarily good for the local government. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I don't see any other hands. I'm going to close public comment. Yes, Crystal?
Agree. The only hand I see is Ian, and he's already spoken.
Yes, I'm going to close public comment. I'm going to bring it back to the council. And council, I'm just going to ask you to bear with me. I'm going to try to come up with the best way to do this while we Zoom. I think what I'd like to do, because I'm sure everybody has a comment, I'm going to start first backwards from my roll call list, and I'll start with Councilmember Wiley. Councilmember Wiley, if you don't want to speak, you can just pass, and then I can move on to the next person. But if you have something you'd like to say, please go now.
Thank you for the opportunity. I do have several points that I want to bring up. I do think that 4,900 is a state level, so surely we do not need that at our local level. There are a few other things that I want to bring up. I have been involved with political fundraisers in the past, and oftentimes things are kind of on a sliding scale when you do a fundraiser. Because of the pandemic and the COVID, I didn't have any kind of fundraisers, and I think there was only one golf tournament that I saw. But basically, you might have one ticket cost maybe $50 or $100, but you have the opportunity to buy 10 tickets for $1,000. And people often do that to support the campaign and then invite their friends. So I think that we just need to be aware of that, because if you have a fundraiser, it's contributing sometimes more than $500. The second thing is, the costs. This was my first real campaign, and the costs are kind of higher than you might anticipate. Right now with mailers, we had quite a few mailers go out this time too. So first, you usually have to pay for a design. I was really lucky, and I had a great volunteer person that helped with the design. But then there's the printing cost, and that's pretty extensive. And then you have to buy the addresses, because you can't just personally address all the things. And then you have to pay for the postage. So like a mailer's $1,000 a whack, and that's only to sending it to a small portion of the voters in your area. So there are some pretty high costs. Another thing that people haven't mentioned thus far, which if you set the limit too low, there's a thing called an independent expenditure. If there was a group that had wanted me elected and they said, we'll do an independent expenditure, then they run their whole campaign. And I wouldn't have any say about what they're mailing out or what signs they do or, how they're advertising it. But then they are working for that candidate, but the candidate doesn't have any input on it. So if you had a limit of 500, but someone had several thousand to donate, which we've seen in this last campaign, they could run an independent expenditure for a certain candidate and thereby not be contributing directly to that candidate. So that is sometimes a way to kind of get around things. So if we set it too low, I believe that people will just find a way to get around the limits that we set. Another thing that is a question, are PACs subject to this the regulations? I know it did say several groups, but I just wondered if political campaigns, PACs are subject to that. So that's one question. So the other thing I also want to say is, although the campaign expenditures were on our city website, you had to really dig pretty hard to find them, so I think if we can make that more visible to the voters, that would be helpful as well. So I think that there should be a difference for the mayor and citywide and districts, but I would think that districts could be, at least $1,000, and then citywide maybe 2,000. But I think 500 is too low. Otherwise, there will just be other ways people will go around it.
Can we get her question answered, City Attorney?
So I think we need a little clarification on the question about PACs.
Right. So like our Travis teachers had a PAC. If the teachers were supporting someone, could the PAC, if the limit was say $500, is a PAC also subject to not more than $500 or not?
I'm not clear on that. That's something that we can get back to you on.
Okay. And those are my comments.
Okay, thank you very much. We have Councilmember Roberts. Did you want to comment?
Yes, sir. I'd like to make a few comments on this. So after looking into this campaign contribution limits, I came across an organization called commoncause.org where they research campaign contribution limits. And based on this paper they published in 2016 after the election season, there's 34 states across the U.S. that have designated campaign contribution limits, and that median is about $1,000 for local. And within California, there's 109 cities that have adopted local contribution limits, and that median is about $500. So one thing I like my fellow council members possibly look into is something between the California average and the national average, maybe something along 750 right in the middle, and scale that up to the at-large elections. So if we have 6 districts, maybe bring that up to $4,500 for at-large elections. Going along with kind of what Councilmember Wiley was discussing, I know Sacramento has adopted a large political committee contribution limit. That might be something that possibly the city attorney and city manager could look into about what that process is and how they implemented it. And yeah, those are my general comments of the numbers I've found of possibly recommending 750 and 4,500.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Councilmember Silva?
Yeah, thank you. So, part of me feels that having no limit allows there's transparency there. So having no limit there is an element of transparency. I totally understand the issue of how much one can essentially get people to donate, but it's this one I'm personally a little split on it because coming from a neighborhood where one of the reasons why some of us supported to go into districts was to ensure that there's more diverse representation, and how do we find ways to make sure that people have access to running for office and be competitive when the money's against them. And in many ways, in some ways, districts actually helps address that. And I think the comments about the difference between how much a district or how much one individual can donate or a group, and we're clarifying what a group means. how much those individuals can donate to a specific campaign for a district versus a mayoral race. I'm not sure there's a need for a difference there because, I mean, you have an at-large community donating to what our case would be a mayoral race versus, in reality, at-large candidates, at-large community can also donate to a district election. So, you know, I'm just taking in, you know, the public comment, taking in what the council, you know, is expressing right now. But, you know, for me, I know there's a lot of comments on trying to put some element of a cap. I know, you know, I would think that there's ways around it all. You know, there's nothing stopping, you know, let's say, for instance, a certain group donating, then individuals donating. And then it's all dependent on really all of that being reported. So, yeah, I mean, those are just my thoughts, and I'm just kind of gathering in what everyone's contributing to the conversation.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Stockton.
Okay, really great comments. I think for me, it's having just come out of running a campaign. I think everybody that won their election was outspent by at least one of their opponents, and so I really think it comes down to the message more than the money. I agree with Ravante Robinson. I think that there is a tremendous amount of importance that should be put on the transparency of where the money comes from, right? And if we are going to, I think it's easier for the public, I think, to find out where that money comes from when it's attached to the candidate and it's not part of some secret, you know, shadow PAC or something crazy like that, where you've got to kind of dig to figure out who's supporting these candidates in a way that they're not in control of what they're saying, but it's for or against that candidate, like Councilmember Wiley mentioned. So, I think that if we cannot limit what a person can donate to their own personal campaign, then the Councilmember Silva is right? The money's going to be against them. If you get some extremely wealthy, affluent business owner that can self-finance their campaign, then you're essentially handicapping somebody being able to raise contributions to be able to compete with them. So I agree, the spirit of the law is important, but if we can't curb someone's individual campaign contributions, then I think that everything the house of cards kind of falls apart. And so I am more interested in the transparency, right? Anybody can go on the website, the city website, or they can go to the Fair Political Practices Commission website, and they can look up a candidate. They can see their 460 forms that list who donated to their campaigns, and it's attached to that candidate. And so I think that is to me, more important than trying to figure out where the money comes from and where there could be opening the door to potential corruption and not knowing where the money is coming from. So I'm in favor of not limiting it, only because I want to know where the money came from. I want to know if big developers are giving money to different candidates when they vote. And I think the citizens have every right to know who's giving me money if I'm running a campaign. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Sullivan.
Yeah, thank you. I have quite a few thoughts, I think, on this, and I've got a couple questions as well. So kind of just starting off with kind of where I've gone a couple different directions tonight in the conversation. I really appreciate the dialogue from the public and appreciate the dialogue from my peers. I don't really feel as a public body with public campaign data available that we should actually need a cap on contributions. It logically doesn't make sense that we should need a cap. The last 2 years, unfortunately, have shown me that is wrong. And we probably do at least need temporarily some sort of cap. What we're really talking about tonight, this policy, is the appearance of corruption or preventing actual corruption. So Section 1E and F from the policy really is the spirit of why the state made this change. And I think that we have to operate from that place, from the spirit of this law. The last election cycle, we had companies with significant multi-million-dollar contracts for years and years and years with the city, making sizable donations to numerous candidates. We had businesses or business owners with business before the city that wanted to change zoning or expand their buildings or alter code or the general plan to also make sizable donations to a series of candidates. We had special interest groups, donate thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, either directly to candidates or in in-kind support, when they had major kind of life-altering decisions before the council at a later date. And then lastly, we had developers with huge project amendments on the horizon, making very, very large contributions. So my question isn't necessarily, or my issue isn't that they shouldn't be able to make those contributions per se. I think the problem is, how do we educate voters on these potential conflicts of interest? And I say potential because they're not conflicts per se, but they could be. And so my larger issue, I think, really with this whole discussion is, how do we educate the populace? And so we've heard about 460s tonight, pulling things from the campaign website. We've heard about real, recognize real, and a couple other comments. 460s are super confusing. And if you look at some of the 460s that candidates filed, they were filed incorrectly. They didn't have the correct data on there. They had names of businesses or LLCs that didn't make sense. Sometimes you couldn't even tell who that large multi-$1,000 donation was coming from. So even with the 460s in the public record, it's still a very confusing process. And as much as we like to say the FTPC polices things, they really don't. So I guess my two key questions in regard to conflict of interest are, could we, and this really doesn't even relate to a cap, but could we flag donations that could have potential conflict or that appear to have a conflict with a special filing status to somehow notify voters? So I don't necessarily care if a business or a developer or a special interest group makes a $50 donation or they make a $50,000 donation. The voters should know, though, that in the next 6 months, there's a major contract or there's some other issue before council where they're making that donation for whatever reason they're making it, but there is the possibility of a potential conflict. And so one of the speakers talked about, how do you protect when someone makes a multi-$1,000 donation and a few months later they vote on a contract? And I think that's a really serious issue that we have to address. The other thing that's really complicated and kind of tough to deal with this is, what about the in-kind support? So you have an independent commission or a PAC making donations. How do we at least, again, maybe we can't control that, but how do we educate voters on where that funding is coming from? It sounds like there's a bunch of loopholes. Mr. Stockton talked about the self-funding, which I kind of sort of agree with, but also you can't be a conflict of interest to yourself. So if you fund yourself $10,000, it's not like you're going to later on conflict yourself after the fact. So I do agree with you kind of in concept, but I also don't think the conflict is there per se. So I would like to hear back from staff specifically on the loopholes that were mentioned tonight. So the PACs, the independent committees, the independent funds, maybe a little clarity on that self-funding. Right now, really where I'm feeling comfortable, unfortunately, and I wish we didn't have to put a cap, is that I think we should do a $500 per district candidate with a $3,500 max for at large. So $3,500 for mayor, that'd be 7 times the 5. More importantly, though, we need some sort of mandatory declaration for potential conflict of interest. So whether there's a conflict or not, some sort of way to clue into voters that, hey, you should pay attention to this. And that's probably the more important part for me. And then lastly, and this is totally unrelated to the action or the item tonight, but as a matter of principle, Mr. Lawrence earlier mentioned that he gave out several business calls and didn't have any phone calls returned. I just wanted to point out, Mr. Lawrence, I've called you back several times, and it's a matter of pride for me to return every call, every email, or every Facebook post. I did call you back, but I appreciate the statement you were making. So that's kind of my take is $500 for district, $3,500 for at large. And then I think we really need to suss out some sort of form or filing process to declare potential conflicts of interest. And that's my comments.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Mashburn.
Well, sir, aside from the fact that I'm just going to be a resident of Vacaville now, and I don't really have a horse in the race, but to speak from experience as one of the folks on this council who has been here for many, many years and been through innumerable elections, I'd like to say, and I don't want everybody to fall out of their chair, that I agree with Ravante Robinson. The key to this is the thing that the state suffers from right now, and that's independent expenditures, as Ms. Wiley said at the beginning of this discussion. If we, as a city, and I understand the public comment, the public wants there to be clarity, and they want there to be controls on things. I absolutely understand that. When you create that limit, you force those individuals who would have been declared on a 460, who would have had their contribution controlled by a candidate, into a black market of politics. They become independent actors, and they have the ability to print and post and do whatever they want to outside of the control of that candidate and his or her campaign, either to support that candidate or to attack their opponent. And at least in my experience in Vacaville, in most races, opponents are at least cordial with each other. There is not a lot of personal attacks and those types of things. When you start to have independent committees acting on their own, that can change. I really wouldn't want to see that happen in our area. I also think that it is, for the purposes of clarity, really important that folks be able to see that on their 460. And Mr. Sullivan's right. It is hard to decipher sometimes, but when you see a campaign contribution that's sizable and is of a considerable amount, in most instances, it's safe to assume that's not from an individual resident. It has to be from some other source, and it may require a little bit more research, but at least you see it and it's there. If it's an independent organization doing that, you may or may not see it. You may or may not hear about it in a timely fashion to be able to research it before you vote. So I really am in favor of there not being that limit from the perspective of the clarity. The other thing is that as Ms. Wiley said at the beginning, there are some significant expenses to campaigns, especially in a citywide campaign. When you talk about mailers, when you talk about consultants, when you talk about your social media and the folks that are going to be helping you with that, there is a very significant cost, especially in a citywide election, for those things. And so that is another reason that I think that a limit, especially on that, would be counterproductive for the candidates. I would just leave you with that. I think that that if you're going to impose a limit that is significant enough that you're not forcing those groups out, or those individual corporations or whatever they might be out outside of our normal political structure, where they're operating as independent contractors or independent operators, and have the ability to do what they want without a lot of accountability. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And a lot of the things that you guys have said, I was going to speak on. I have been through 5 campaigns myself since being first elected to the city council. And I think in the spirit of putting some limits on our campaign, I would love that to happen. I want everyone to be able to have an equal opportunity. But unfortunately, there's so many ways to go around that. Just like our state and federal politicians, they have a lot of limits on what they can get. However, they end up raising millions and millions and millions of dollars. And there's just so many ways to go around it. It creates something that I don't believe is good. Out of the 5 campaigns that I've ran, and I've watched all the other campaigns during those years, there hasn't been negative, campaigns against another council member. I've always prided the city of Vacaville on always just running their election, whether we see eye to eye as council members while running against each other. It's always been a very clean race. There are cities nearby that have campaign limits, and then the independent expenditures come in. Again, I think that we've explained that the independent expenditure doesn't care what the council member that they're supporting wants. They just go out and do what they want. And I think you really open yourself up when you're limiting people, because the developers or the PACs or the unions or any of those folks that are out there that do give bigger donations to council members, you kind of force them to go a different direction. They'll still want to do and support the council members that they want, but there's, in my opinion, I feel like there is some responsibility from the council member. People come in and give us the money. The 460 show exactly where it's coming from. There was a lot of discussion this year. I saw on social media that everyone knew exactly. They were posting it on social media. I do believe the city of Vacaville does need to do a better job making sure that the citizens see where the money's coming from. But I've always prided ourselves as the city of Vacaville that, keeps positive during an election. And I would hate to see us go into a limit to where all these independent expenditures come in, and then those folks feel like they can go out and do what they want to do unlimited. So I don't mind the limit, but I don't know how you control it. So without control of the limit, I believe we should not have it limited at all, and keep it open and keep us having to report and keep the campaign within the campaign person that's running. So it's easier, but I don't think I'm going to discuss it tonight, and I might ask the city attorney or city manager to help me out with this one, but I'd like to come up with something tonight so we can give it to the District 2 candidates that are going to run, and then maybe come back and I think Councilmember Sullivan said, come back and come up with some kind of policy to make sure, we just want to make sure the folks of Vacaville know where this money's coming from. And if we don't have a limit and it comes in, we want to make sure it's easily accessible to the public. If we have to figure out how to get it on the website so it's easier to find. I find it that we've been doing it like that. I haven't seen any problems. I haven't seen the negativity come out. I would hate to see negativity. And then I believe another council member said, like, dirty money then come in, because now people are like, well, I would have gave that council member X amount of money, but now I'm going to go out and do my own PAC. And then you can't really control that. So I'm good at leaving it the way it is and then bringing it back to a next council member meeting and discuss maybe some ways that we can control it and maybe make sure that we're doing a better job getting it out there. But those are my comments just from my years of experience. And the last thing I will say is, yes, running a campaign is very expensive. Just a campaign consultant by itself could run into the $10,000 range. Each district, and I know everyone just came off their election, your campaign literature to get the word out to the folks in the mailbox, thousands of dollars, a campaign manager on top of that, your signs, thousands of dollars to get your signs out. I would, if we do come up with a limit, I would like to see a different limit for at large. I think Councilmember Silva mentioned, you can, if you set the limit at 1,000 or 2,000, then everyone gets to pull from the whole city, and you know, it's fair across the board. But you know, honestly, the district is going to be just 1/6 of what, you know, a at-large person is going to run, and the at-large person gets the same, you know, amount of people that are able to donate. Just because you're in a district doesn't mean that someone from your other district doesn't donate. The whole city could end up donating to you. But I'll leave it at that. It's very expensive. If there was a way to truly control it, I would be in favor of limiting the money. I'm scared that we're going to lose the control that we have as council members running our own council race. And I would like to have that control still, and not have outside influence coming in and running IEs, which we do see it. Just in this county alone, we see it all over the place. And I've seen bad campaigns ran from IEs, and it's horrible. So with that, you know, I'm going to continue council comments. Anyone else wants to comment? I think at this point, I'm not going to go back in order again, but if somebody has something to say, you can either raise your hand on here and I'll see you, or just announce your name and I'll call you. Any other council members want to speak?
I just wanted to clarify real quick with staff. So sorry, apologies. This is Mike Sola.
It's cool. Go ahead, council member.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Rookie mistake. Would this apply to individual contributions? Just trying to clarify that.
It would apply to individual contributions, but not contributions from the candidate to their own campaign.
I apologize. That's what I meant. And then
to the campaign.
And then but we still need clarification on PACs, political action committees.
Correct. I mean, my gut is that it would apply to political action committees, but I'd like to do some further research on that and bring it back to you.
Thank you.
Mr. City Attorney, just to jump in, I'm looking right at our agenda, first page background. It does say committees under the very first paragraph in the background. I'm assuming that would be the committee, the PAC. I could be wrong, and you know, my question is, if we can't get the answer tonight and this council wants to hold it over, we start to push into what we're trying to avoid. We want to give the opportunity to District 2 to be able to run their campaign. So I don't want not to get the correct answers. However, I want to make sure that we stay on task and give the opportunity to the candidates in District 2 to make sure they can run the election that we as a city want them to run.
So,
Mr. Mayor, this is Mitch.
Hold on, let someone answer that, please.
Well, so I was just going to say, Mr. Mayor, if the loan issue tonight, because there's a couple of things here, and I appreciate all the dialogue and the conversations and the request for additional information. If there's interest from the council to take an action tonight so that we don't default to the 4,900 effective January 1, if the council is needing a single answer on the PAC discussion, we could ask for a short break and get that answer to you. But I also heard quite a few other questions about, you know, how do we educate people about, you know, the campaign process and the contribution concerns and conflicts and all of that. That's going to take some more time to pull together. And so depending on what the council's interest is, you know, we can come back with that bigger answer for, you know, the outreach efforts and the long-term questions at a future meeting date. If it's solely the question of the PAC, we can do some very quick research and come back to you in just a couple of minutes, hopefully, to give you confirmation on that so that you can make an informed decision tonight.
Can we, because we still, I'm sure we have more discussion, can somebody run and grab those documents, or do we really need to take a break?
we're working on it right now.
Yeah. Okay. Well, why don't we continue the discussion? And I see Councilmember Sullivan's hand up. So before I go to you, Councilmember Mashburn, let me go to Councilmember Sullivan.
Are you going to me first? I'm sorry, I got confused on that, Ron.
Yeah, Councilmember Sullivan. Yes, please go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. So just a couple comments back. I totally appreciate the comments from my peers here, and I think that they made good points, and some of them have been through, very few campaigns, and some have been through very, very many. My biggest question, I guess, really, and again, the biggest issue for me tonight is the appearance of corruption or preventing actual corruption. And so my question, I guess, would be to Melinda or Michelle, could we motion to have a candidate fill out a form or somehow attest with an affidavit or somehow kind of check a box on their 460 that says whether or not that donor has business with the city currently or in the future that could lead to conflict or not? I think that really is the root of the issue for me. The second point, I really did appreciate the comments from my peers, and I think that we're all trying to have a transparent and democratic process. The problem is the dark money's already here. The negative campaigns and slander are already here. So I know one of my co-council members mentioned that's not happening in Vacaville. That's happening in Vacaville. There was a very kind of negative campaign against several candidates last round. And whether or not it was an official anti-campaign is that didn't happen, but that's happening. That behavior is already happening. It's already happening here in Vacaville. LLCs can donate anonymously already. PACs can donate anonymously. There were council members in the last election cycle. When you look at their 460s, there is no possible way that they were accounting for all of the donations, or that you didn't know that they were getting some unstated donations from outside groups. The amount of signage, the amount of mailers that went out, there's just no way that you can reconcile that cost with what was on the 460. So we have outside groups already doing this. So I totally understand my council members' points. But I mean, factually, it's already happening in Vacaville. So I think the argument about implementing campaign caps is going to create these problems. These problems are already here. It may exacerbate these problems. I'll give them that. But I think these problems are already here. So for me, I would really like the loophole questions answered before I'm comfortable making a decision. So the PACs, the outside interest groups, et cetera, et cetera. But most importantly, I would like the question answered from Melinda or Michelle. Can we require that candidates somehow swear on an affidavit or a form of their 460 that a donor does or in fact have business with the city that potentially could be viewed as a conflict of interest? I guess that's my largest question and biggest concern. I'm done.
Mayor, we can address both of those right now.
Yeah, that would be great. I would appreciate it.
So for the first one, I'll have Michelle respond to the concern about the appearance of corruption in the Form 460.
So the Form 460 is not our form. That's the FPPC's form, obviously. I couldn't alter their form to do anything for us. We could look into the possibility of, having some sort of other means for people to report to us regarding the contributions they're receiving from donors. But there's some regulatory and constitutional guidelines we would really want to explore before we commit to that. I think the Form 460 is already, it's been tested by legislature and the law and stuff. So we want to be careful when we're reaching into those kind of situations. So we would really need to take a long look at that.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on that, when you're talking about mandatory flags for conflicts of interest with respect to donors, you are really delving into some constitutional issues and perhaps even some enforcement issues, and it implicates the First Amendment right of association. So before we did that, we'd want to make sure we're on good legal ground.
Thank you. Councilmember Sullivan, did that answer your questions?
Yeah, I think we would need some more research from staff if that's what the council wanted them to do.
Okay, I'm going to go to Councilmember Mashburn.
I would defer to continue the discussion with the rest of the council, but I'd like to point out that the majority of the individuals who are talking about receiving the contributions are not going to necessarily know what companies or individuals might be bringing, and I emphasize the might, be bringing before the council at some point in time in the future to declare that conflict. And they may or may not know if there is in fact a contract or some type of connection back to the city from that particular individual, as you know, having been a councilman for 2 years, and to ask them to sign a sworn affidavit saying that they know that there's not, or they know that there is kind of a catch-22 for them. I don't think that it would be legally possible for us to do or enforce. But I'll throw it back out for discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Wiley.
Yes, I think, and this has been good discussion. We've looked at a lot of issues. In the long run, for most candidates in the city, we've got a lot of small donations, so that when there are big ones, it is pretty apparent when you look at their 460. So just making those easy for the public to see is important. And we have quite a few people who have spoken for no limits, and then people who have spoken for kind of lower limits. So it seems to me to kind of advocate for a middle ground so that we can have a whole lot of, smaller donations. If we set, $1,000 for the maximum, that would, I think, prevent some independent expenditures because people could give that amount. If we go much lower, then we'd have, a lot more of those types of campaigns. And if we absolutely say no limits, then I feel like we are not really doing what we need to do to try to equalize it so that we don't have those big money donors in as, to have such an influence on the local election. So I think that we could probably come up with something that works for everyone.
I would, Councilmember Sullivan, you still had your hand up, or did you not bring it back down? I don't want to run over.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't bring it back down.
Okay.
Sorry. Thank you.
No, that's okay. I would be willing to make a motion to do, for each district, $1,000, like Councilmember Wiley said, and then maybe $2,500 for the mayor, or I should say at large. I know that the city clerk and the, I'm going to blank, the treasurer doesn't really run campaigns, but that'd be something, and it would be lower than what the state is saying, and it would be a cap if anyone's interested in that. I'm just trying to get us together. I know that we all are trying to figure out something. I'm trying to bring it all together now and try to run something together. So if someone wants to mention some other numbers, or if you want to go with,
Mayor,
I can
Mike
make
Silva.
an motion. What? I'm sorry. Go ahead. Who is this?
Mike Silva.
Okay, Councilmember Silva.
So, I'm okay with that, Mayor. And I think the thing is, we can always look back and see, how can we adapt it and move forward. And so, it's a trial and error and process. Hopefully our community pulls together and sees, what we want out of our locally elected, members and the campaigns that we all run and what we uphold. And so, this is our first go around. Seeing things that are kind of splitting all over the place. So, I'd be in support of that.
Okay, and I see Councilmember Roberts' hand up. Councilmember Roberts.
Yes, sir. Kind of go along with what Mike Silva mentioned. $1,000, $2,500. I'm good with that. We have to start somewhere because right now there's no precedent set for the city, and we can't really judge based off other cities because each city is unique. And so I think that's a good start. And then, as was mentioned earlier, we can always look at what happens in the next campaign this year and then in 2 years from now and make adjustments as necessary from that.
Okay, great. Do we have any other council members before we get the motion made?
I have a quick comment. Ms.
Sullivan, go ahead, sir.
Hey, so I guess, I don't necessarily, like I said, have a problem necessarily with the dollar amount. I think the problem for me is the transparency issue. It's the, there's 75 different ways we could try to kind of have the transparency issue addressed. And that could be, an affidavit, that could be staff looking through the list of donors and seeing if there's active contracts. I really think fundamentally that's what this topic or this policy is trying to address is corruption, and it's where the money's coming from, and it's engaging voters. And so I am very supportive of the dollar amount. I don't really have a big problem with that. I do think I would like staff to come back with some ideas on the transparency piece. And so that really is kind of the crux of this item for me. So I don't necessarily want to make a friendly amendment because it sounds like the votes might already be in to push this forward. But I really think if we don't address the transparency and perceived corruption issue, we're kind of missing the boat on this item.
Okay, I have Councilmember Stockton.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute. I agree with Councilmember Sullivan. I have less of an issue with the money and more about making sure that the public knows who is donating to the different council member campaigns or candidate campaigns. And so if I'm not doing this right, I also would like the information from the person that will be elected from District 2. It's not an extreme amount of distance before that person would fill that seat. And so I'm kind of reluctant to change what all of us just went through for this person on a kind of a trial run. I'd kind of appreciate hearing their comments on this as well, and also giving staff more time to work with all of us and address some of the concerns about how we might be able to educate the public and make those donations more clear to them. So as far as making a motion, I'd like the motion that we keep it at no limits like it is right now, and allow staff to go and research some of the stuff that was brought up in our discussion today, so that way when we have our 7th person here, we can come to a consensus that will be more applicable to more of the candidates that are going to run in the next election.
All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second for no limit?
I would second that.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, can you restate the motion?
Yeah, the motion is for no limit. Just keep it like it is right now.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Stockton?
Yes.
Councilmember Silva?
Oh.
Councilmember Roberts?
No.
Councilmember Wiley?
No.
Councilmember Mashburn?
Yes.
Councilmember Sullivan?
As stated, no.
Mayor Roulette?
Although it's lopsided, I will say yes, but it's going to fail for a 4-3. I will then, I'll make the motion that I was going to originally make. If no other, I don't want to cut off any other council members. It's a little bit tougher with 7 sitting up here, but I would say let's go to a 25 for at large and 1,000 for districts. That would be my motion.
So Mike Silva, a second.
Yeah, I have a motion and a second. And then, you know what, before we discuss any further, that's kind of on the question, I want to assure this council that we do need to bring something back down the road. Let this new district, District 2, get their election in. We'll bring back all 7 and we'll discuss. I would really like to see the transparency issue looked at. I do agree with Councilmember Sullivan that it would be nice to have it out there so people can see it. It's a little bit easier to find it on the website, so people can see where the money's coming from and help the voters out there. So I have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call vote?
Councilmember
Can I ask one question or a friendly amendment, if possible?
Councilmember Sullivan, is that?
Yeah. So, I mean, based on your statement, I mean, I kind of agree with you, and I know we're going to go back and forth on this all night. So could we make your motion, but add that we would like to agendize staff having that discussion after the council members elected? So just to formalize our intent to have options brought to the full council of 7 once they're elected, with a discussion on transparency options and kind of what we learned from the last election cycle. So it'd be the same limits, the same motion, but just instructing staff to bring that back once the person's elected.
I agree with you. I'm going to ask the city attorney, do you want us to take those 2 motions separately since that's not on the agenda? Take the limits and then discuss bringing it back, or, you know, I think the whole council will agree that we would like to look at the policy. But I want to make sure I want to make sure we're doing it correctly. City attorney.
So Mayor, we've conferred and we take it, we have the council's instruction to come back once we have District 2 seated with the follow-up to discussion about the transparency piece. So we do not need a motion for that. We can just stick with the motion at hand for the limits.
I appreciate that. Councilmember Sullivan, are you good with that, sir?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay, then we've got a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Mashburn?
Aye.
Councilmember Sullivan?
Yes.
Councilmember Stockton?
No.
Councilmember Silva?
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Wiley?
Yes.
Mayor Roulette?
Yes. Fantastic. We got through an agenda item. That's wonderful. We will. You're going to read it in? Yeah, I apologize. You know, I've been looking at it the whole night going, don't mess that one up. And I did anyway. So please read that in. I appreciate it.
Ordinance of the City Council of the City of Vacaville adding Chapter 2.65, Campaign Contribution Limits and Regulations to Title II, Administration and Personnel of the Vacaville Municipal Code to establish contribution limits and regulations for candidates for city office.
Thank you. We will move to item 4A, COVID update. I believe our fire chief, Mr. Concepcion, are you there?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm going to try to be brief tonight. As always, I'm going to start with the latest data that we have. Next slide, please, Crystal. In California, these numbers were as of today, there's 1,389,707 cases with 20,047 deaths throughout the state. As far as the 14-day positivity, the number of people testing positive versus being tested is at 8.4%. This is a significant increase over the last time that I gave you folks an update. Drilling down to Solano County, I'm going to give you numbers that are even newer than what is on the slide there. They didn't update their numbers until the council meeting was already in progress. So as of about 7:30 this evening, there's 11,950 cases. So you can see a significant number of increase. That's 203 cases over yesterday. There's 1,163 active cases. This number of active cases is roughly twice of what I reported to you a month ago at the last council meeting. So that's another concerning number. The the number of patients that are currently hospitalized are 74, and there are 90 now 90 reported deaths as a result of COVID. In Solano County, the 7-day positivity rate is how we report it, is at 12.8%. And then in the city of Vacaville, it is at 2,461 cases. I'm sorry, 2,504 cases. I read the wrong number. 2,504 cases as of today at 7:30. Next slide, please. So the latest status is about a week and a half ago, the state went into a regionalized approach as far as their restrictions and as far as COVID is concerned. If you remember the colored tiers, we were in the red tier, and then we were moved back into the purple tier when they went to the regionalized approach. Solano County is one of 11 counties in what they call the Bay Area region. And now the trigger for more restrictions as far as the region is concerned is the number of ICU beds that are available. Once the region hits, as region hits 15%, only 15% of ICU beds available, then they go into a further restriction, which means some of the things and some of the significant things is while you can dine outside right now, that is removed. Barbers and hair salons can no longer operate indoors with that further restriction. Because we are above that as far as availability. The Bay Area region as of today is reporting 24.5% availability of ICU beds. And then in Solano County, the state is reporting 17.7% ICU beds availability, but the Solano County website is reporting a 30% ICU bed availability. I've had my staff and I have been looking into why there's this discrepancy in the difference between the state reporting Solano County numbers and the way Solano County is reporting, and unfortunately I just have not been able to get an answer yet. So according to the state, we're still above that, and as a region, we're still almost 10% over that trigger. So hopefully we'll stay that way. However, as the numbers are trending, and when they introduced this about a week and a half ago, they were predicting that the Bay Area region would probably hit the only 15% available ICU beds about the third week of Christmas. So hopefully we won't hit that. The good thing that we have in our favor is there are several Bay Area counties that have voluntarily, ahead of the added restrictions, gone into those added restrictions and locked down further than what is necessary according to the region. So hopefully that will help and keep our availability of ICU beds up. As far as Vacaville is concerned, locally, we're continuing because anticipating that continued inability of businesses to dine indoors and other things to be able to be done indoors. So the city is continuing our efforts as far as helping our small businesses be able to continue their operations outside. And then I've got with me Emily Cantu, our housing director, is going to take over from here. There are several projects that you, the city council, have approved, and she's going to give you an update on how all of those projects and assistance to our community are going right now.
Yes, thank you, Chief. Next slide, please, Crystal. I want to go over a few programs that the City Council designated CARES Act funding towards. The first one is to help our local small businesses through grants for those businesses negatively impacted by COVID. To date, 20 businesses have been funded through that grant program, and we still are reviewing and processing
22 applications. Those are pending. This program will be complete by the end of the year. The Police Department Family Resource Center is implementing the Economic and Housing Support Grants Program. That's helping our residents with rental and other assistance to ensure they can stay housed when their income has decreased due to COVID. That program has helped 90 households to date. You can see 153 adults and 169 children in those 90 households have been helped, with 32 households on the waiting list that will be processed as funding becomes available. And then finally, our winter sheltering program that's being operated by Vacaville Solano Services Corporation. It's a 12-hour program sheltering our Vacaville homeless residents from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. with full-time staff on site at all times and staff on call at any time as well to help out. They are serving 15 clients a night on average. The highest usage was 26 clients on a particular evening, just as a point. To date, 2 clients have expressed interest in seeking permanent housing, which is a great step and a good accomplishment in such a short time period. The program's been operating for 13 nights. And then there's a list of what resources and other items the program is providing: showers and toiletries. Each client is getting meals and snacks while they're there. They have crates and food for dogs, and I know at least one client took advantage of that opportunity and was able to use the shelter and crate their dog so the dog was safe and that everyone there was safe. Case management, and they've also added the services of a volunteer nurse to help with any medical questions or issues. Next slide, please. Crystal. On the next slide is just information about where folks can donate if they wish. Crystal, do you have that slide for the winter sheltering program? Thank you. Couple places and times, depending on the interest of anyone in the community who'd like to help out with the sheltering program. So you can see a list of, kind of your sleeping items, clothing items that are needed by the clients. Those are being accepted at the Opportunity House thrift store. And then if you're interested in helping out with the food or snack items or providing meals to the clients who are using the program, those are accepted at the Opportunity House Homeless Shelter on Bennett Hill Court. The hours are listed on the slide, and just make sure you let the staff know when you're dropping things off that they are for the winter warming shelter program. And that was all I had as an update for you this evening.
Thank you. Does the council have any questions or comments? Okay, I have none.
A quick one. This is Mike Silva.
Oh, yes. Councilmember Silva, go ahead, sir. I'm sorry.
That's all right. Thank you. This is for City Manager Aaron. Kind of extending the conversation we had earlier. Do we have any plans in place to collectively bring in the business voices to represent how we can, how we as a council, how we as a community can continue to support our local businesses in a safe way?
Sure. So there's a couple things at work. Thank you for the question. So I believe that we were talking earlier about the bridge recovery strategy that the council previously approved, allocating, I believe, $29,000. So that our economic development team is working with consultants to reach out to a multiple number of stakeholders and focus groups to find out just exactly how we can help them through the pandemic crisis and to begin developing a recovery strategy that gets them back on their feet. So once that's completed, because we are using CARES fund, it does have to be completed by the end of the year. So as soon as that document is completed, we'll be bringing that back to the council for a presentation and an update so that we can share with you what that document includes and the implementation strategies to go forward to help our local businesses at the next available council meeting.
And thank you, Aaron. And if we have any businesses reaching out with any concerns about loans and, help with whatever policies, who should we direct them to, or who should the community direct them to? Well,
we have a number of different people working on that, but Don Burris, our Economic Development Services Director, Tim Padden, our Economic Development Manager, and Emily Cantu is also actively involved in the application process. So any one of those three can take and field calls from our businesses out there.
Thank you, Aaron.
Councilmember Sullivan.
I really appreciate the presentation tonight and all the work staff's been doing. Very happy to hear about the warming shelter and some of the other operations we've got rolling out. I think it's almost like we're getting into like COVID the sequel now. So we have new council members. CARES funding expires on December 30th. There's a strong probability, looking at the news today, that there's going to be some sort of secondary stimulus package or secondary act. So I guess I'm wondering kind of to the city manager, what are we doing to prepare for that second round of funding? And I guess my comment to go along with that question is we did have some fits and starts when we started all this originally. We were going to use CSPG for some stuff, and then that kind of fell through, and then finally the CARES funding came through, and it did delay getting dollars out the door by a couple months. Are we somehow like keeping the engine running, and then as soon as CARES 2.0 comes through, we fill up the gas tank again? What are we doing to prepare for that next round of support? And COVID obviously is probably worse now than it's ever been. How are we bridging that gap between CARES version 1 and CARES 2.0, and what are you hearing that we should expect?
Well, thank you, Councilman Sullivan. So, we're not counting the money just yet because it's been speculated up to this point in time. But as you mentioned, much like other jurisdictions around us, we were not, there was no manual for this when it first hit. And so, we got our sea legs under us, and our crew is very proactive now and working with our business partners out there in the community, the Big Four partnership with the Chamber and Downtown Business Improvement District and others, and Visit Vacaville. And so I think we've got a very good system in place now that we're partnering with those groups, and our staff has programs, and we're monitoring other jurisdictions on other opportunities that potentially exist out there to help businesses in a variety of different ways. So I think we're more prepared, more agile, and so it's a matter of once we, and of course we do have as Chief Concepcion kind of alludes to, we have a city COVID action team here that meets regularly every week to monitor what's coming out of the governor's office, to monitor what's coming out of the county health officer's office, and all the other, daily things that are happening with COVID. And so we are very proactive in that regard. And as soon as we see confirmation that there is a second round coming out, we'll be prepared to jump into action on that right away, bring back options to the council so that we can build on the successes that we, might have taken us a little while to get to, but we did get there. And so we'll build on that in the event that there's additional rounds coming forward.
Awesome, thank you. And the only other comment I wanted to make is one of the other threats on the horizon is some of these state moratoriums on evictions and things are starting to actually phase out. And some of the national moratoriums are starting to phase out. Really the end game for low-income residents or residents that are kind of living on the fringe because of unemployment or whatever, once they get that eviction, it's damn near impossible to get folks rehoused. They've got it on the record, it destroys their credit, and then it creates a whole different problem of homelessness. So whatever we can do in the interim to bridge that gap to avoid any evictions of residents, especially lower income residents, I really hope staff can prioritize. And then conversely, I'm hearing sad tales every single day of businesses closing their doors. There's, another one in the paper this morning, and anything we can do, in the interim while we're waiting for the feds to figure out their business to avoid or assist a business in not closing. I think those need to be the two guiding principles for the next month or two. Just super big priorities for me. So I know staff are on top of it, and I really appreciate all the work you guys are doing. But again, if we can have a laser focus on those evictions and business closures, I think that's super important, especially over the next 2 months while we figure out what the feds are doing.
All right, thank you, council member. Any other council members before I open it up to public comment?
I have one more question, sir. It's Mike Silva.
Silva, yes, go ahead, sir.
Aaron, just last question. If is there some type of feedback mechanism as far as business owners waiting on funding if they haven't received, a loan or a grant that they apply to, or any other support? Is there some type of feedback mechanism if they've been denied, or they can follow up what the status is on their expected check?
Yeah, we have a variety of different resources with business partners, and the group of 3 that I mentioned before, I would have them reach out to any one of those folks, or if you know those individuals, I can have staff reach out to them directly and help them.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, I'll open the floor to any comments from the public.
Edward Russell, I'll open your mic.
Good evening again. I think with this whole COVID thing, we just need to just point out some glaring issues or concerns. The actual and obvious disconnect between city leaders and the school district is alarming. You have city officials saying one thing, and then the school district doing another thing for the safety of our children. When those two things don't align, you cause a rift in the support that you get from parents, because now you have parents siding with one side or the other. There's no right or there's no wrong. It's just that's how, unfortunately, humans think. It is about time that city officials, including the mayor, lead from the front and align themselves in accordance with the school district and form some sort of alliance. So that way there, when parents have concerns of what's going on at the schools, especially now with COVID and people and young folks are having serious struggles with online learning, it's important that the leader of the city stands in total alliance with the superintendent and the district. When that doesn't happen, you have parents with unnecessary anxieties and mistruths and misnomers. And now you have all these different bubbling opinions and ill wills towards the district. And then that spitefulness is burdened on to the children. It's a very serious problem. So I will leave you with this. And Mr. Mayor, you're the utmost highest level leader in this city. Here's the number one issue, and I hope you sleep well on this, and please think about it. McDonald's is open. McDonald's is open, but our children can't go to school. I don't even understand that one, so I'll leave that for you guys to discuss. Good night.
Thank you. Any other callers?
Troy Lawrence, I will open your mic.
Thank you. I apologize for distracting from the matter previous. Did want to voice though the 5 years that, I felt a lot of tax money and stuff could have helped the city. But as well, I do want to thank you for the transparency, Mr. Mayor, the diligence, as well as the city council with the transparency with this issue. It was something that I brought up previous meetings and I had a problem with appointments, but understood. And definitely want to thank the transparency and the due diligence with the new city council members, and that I do support. It seems regardless with the LLC and stuff like that, that the due diligence is being put forward. And I want to thank the city council, the mayor, everybody, and hope that it gets resolved. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other callers? I see no other hands up.
I see no additional. Oh, I see Ravante Robinson.
Okay, let him in, please.
Ravante, I'll open your mic.
Yeah, so I guess this is my last chance to speak for the night. But, you know, I'm probably going to say something that's going to shock people once again. But I feel that we need to do whatever we can to help our small businesses that are in our locally owned businesses out here. Just for the fact that Walmart is open and it's always going to be open and it's never going to stop being open. And they're going to continue to rip off all the people at Vacaville. I just feel like we need to do whatever we can to let our small businesses stay in place. Well, except for Primo's. But, you know, basically, I just want to say, you know, we need to help support our small businesses, COVID or not, because that's just what we have to do. You know, the corporations get to eat off of us forever, and we need to do whatever we can to help the people who are from here serve our community. That's basically what I'm trying to say.
Thank you. Next caller.
Sarah Palmisano, I'll open your mic.
Hey guys, I just wanted to echo what Nolan said specifically about evictions and how incredibly hard it is to be rehoused after an eviction also wrecks your credit in the middle of a pandemic. Really, we really don't want to be doing that. And if those things expire at a state level or federal level, is there anything we could do at a city level to, you know, supersede a whole mass more of homeless folks in the early 21 months?
Mr. City Manager, do you want to take that?
So I believe the question is there anything, are there any more resources that can be used to help prevent evictions? And so that is exactly what the FRC program is doing. And so we are allocating as much CARES Act money as we can through the end of this year. Hoping, following what Councilmember Sullivan said in terms about potential relief coming in the beginning of the new year. We're tracking that. We're hopeful that there provides additional relief through new legislation, temporary legislation, as well as additional funding available for that. If that doesn't come through, then if the council wishes to continue that program, we would have to come back with a discussion about alternative funding for that event or for that purpose.
And if I can just chime in, we're also following some recent bills that have been introduced in the legislature to extend the statewide moratoriums on evictions. So that's going through the process right now.
Okay, thank you. Next caller.
Julia Roudson Thomas, I'll open your mic.
Thank you. I just wanted to see if you guys have anything on the line for essentially pre-approving or looking into people that would need funding that you don't currently have, but that is hopefully on the way. So like calling apartment complexes, finding out who exactly is potentially on the verge of eviction, essentially lining up a list of people that would need help once we have any funds available, essentially doing that preemptive work so that when money is available, it can just get distributed, making sure that even if the money isn't available for some of the small business grants, making sure that we're still going through all of that so that essentially when resources are available, you don't have to go through this whole process again. You've already gone through it. And at that point, you're just distributing money. So is that something that you are going to be doing in this interim? Or what is the plan for while resources are limited? Thank you.
Mr. City Manager, do you want to field that question, please?
Well, I appreciate the sentiment about trying to be proactive and find those that need help. What we're currently doing is trying to promote the programs and services that we do offer and get the word out there. And I think we've been quite successful with the efforts that we've had to to reach out to other folks in that nature is going to require a bunch of different staff resources that we currently don't have, honestly. And so, we can continue to try to promote with our partners out there to see if there's opportunities to get the word out there about our program, and those that need it or believe that they need it to contact us, and we can make them available of what options are available to them.
Thank you, sir. I see no other hands up. I am going to close public comment and move this item to item 5A, nominations and selections of the new vice mayor. By default, and I want to talk about this because it shouldn't be by default, but the last council, we voted that no one that it was within their first year was able to run for vice mayor. But Mr. Sullivan has worked his tail off in the last 2 years. He's done really good work on this city council. He has proven himself as a council member, and I would like to make the motion to make Mr. Sullivan the new vice mayor. And again, this is not by default. He has worked hard. He deserves it. And I would like to make that in a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor. This is Mitch.
Thank you. Can we have a roll call vote?
Councilmember Silva?
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Wiley?
Yes.
Councilmember Mashburn?
Aye.
Councilmember Sullivan?
Yes.
Councilmember Stockton?
Yes.
Mayor Roulette?
Aye. Thank you very much. We do have item 5B, which is a reappointment of Neil Iverson to the Solano Transportation Authority Bicycle Advisory Committee for an additional 3-year term. I will open it up to anyone on the council to make the motion.
I have a quick comment, Mayor.
Oh, sure. Please go ahead, sir.
So I hate to even make a sticking point about this. I know it's late and everyone's ready to go, but my comment is very similar to a comment I had a few months back for 2 other appointments. I tried to get some information from the city about this particular appointment to this group, and I'm sure this gentleman is a fine gentleman. I'm sure he is doing an excellent job, but I don't personally know Mr. Iverson, and there was no really background information on him presented kind of as to why he's doing this or why he's not doing this. And it was also sort of unclear as to what the STA's Bicycle Advisory Committee does. So I kind of debated even bringing this up tonight, but I almost feel like, we're approving kind of a job application or a job. I don't know anything about Mr. Iverson, and I don't know enough and that doesn't mean he's not good. He could be an amazing top candidate. I just don't have information to feel comfortable making the decision tonight. And so I did ask kind of the last time this happened that staff really bring forward application, a resume, a description of kind of where we're at. I know this kind of caught us off guard, so I think it was a timing thing. So I'm not trying to slam city staff by any means. But we're appointing someone to a 3-year term for a committee that I know nothing about, and I don't know anything about him. So it just makes me uncomfortable, and I think that we really need to talk about our appointment process as a whole. If we're appointing people to 3-year terms on committees that make decisions that could be very important or could not be, I just feel like we don't have enough information to make decisions. So I think honestly tonight, because I've made this comment before about past appointments, I realize there is a timing issue. I just really don't feel like I have enough information to decide on this. So I would like to ask staff if we delayed this until the next meeting and actually got a resume or some information, or open it up for other applications for folks that might be interested, and then maybe some information on the actual seat itself. Would that delay something for STA? Is there a reason this has to be rushed tonight?
And I'm going to let them answer, but I am going to, and I don't want to sound like I'm disagreeing with you. I do understand your thought process on this. I am the chair of the STA. I do sit on there as a elected mayor. are tasked with trying to find people to sit on these boards. We send it out for anyone that wants to sit on these boards. The STA announces it. We announce it. It's hard to even get someone to step up. Obviously, as all the council members will soon find out, we find out about what's going on, you know, a good week before, because we all have meetings with our city manager. So when this came up and this was brought up to me immediately, you know, I was checking with our staff saying, hey, you know, is someone else trying to apply for this? Have we done our due diligence? You know, does this guy still want to be on there? So I had to go back and just kind of do some work and find out exactly what was going on. And we do have this on the agenda. I would urge all our council members to, you know, make sure they go out and try to get the information. But I agree with you. You know, I think we could do a better job making sure the city council is aware of who's applying, and you know, making sure that maybe you get a, you know, I guess at least their application so you can see. Typically, that's always open to the public, but we will do a better job. I would like to move this forward unless someone says absolutely not tonight, or the 4 people say no. But I agree with Nolan. I'm sure that we could do a lot better job in making sure the council, and I'm going to task our city manager to make sure that he is talking to each individual council member and making sure that they have the information. Sometimes we have information a few weeks before the agenda, and I think we should educate this council and make sure that we're getting them the information they need. I don't see any other hands, so I don't want to push this off. I'm going to make the motion that we just reappoint him, and then I think the city manager heard us loud and clear that we want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence, so we educate our council members before they're, you know, going to vote on something. So I do appreciate that, Councilmember Sullivan. I made the motion. Can I get a second?
Mr. Mayor, this is Mitch. He's already served 3 years on that committee. I think that he has shown that he is competent in the job, or the STA would have been squawking about it. It is an important role that they play at the county, where we're talking about bike lanes, we're talking about commuting, we're talking about those things that relate to all things that relate to bike and transit in Vacaville, and the funding that may come to us from the STA for that. And that committee is part of that and part of that decision making. So I would second your motion for him to remain.
Okay. Can we have a roll call vote?
Councilmember Roberts?
My vote no, just because I have no, like Councilmember Sullivan, I'd like more information on him before I vote yes on him.
Mayor, is it okay if we just for a second take a look at the information that was provided in the packet? Mr. Iverson is currently the chair of the Bicycle Advisory Committee for the STA. Their next meeting is January 7th, and you do not have another meeting from then until then. So we would be leaving them without a chairperson for their committee. If the council would like to.
And I appreciate that. That's in your packet. You know, I don't want to discount Councilmember Roberts for voting no, but I would like to see this move forward again. You know, if we can get this one and make sure that we do a better job with the city manager. You know, obviously, we're going to continue through with this vote. If it does vote no, then you know, it's going to be unfortunate, but let's continue with the vote.
Councilmember Stockton?
Yes.
Councilmember Silva?
Yes.
Councilmember Wiley?
Yes, I did have one other comment too. It's just that I think it's important to have council members on these committees. So if Mayor Roulette was on it, was there any other council member on this committee?
Oh, I apologize. I sit on the STA, which this is a side committee from the STA that the STA does. So I don't sit on the bicycle committee, no. I sit with the Solano Transportation Authority. As the mayor, all the mayors in Solano County sit on this board. I apologize if I wasn't.
So there's no council member on this committee?
No.
And the other night, the Parks and Rec had a meeting last week, and they talked quite a bit about bike lanes, and they were trying to get, bike lanes continuous throughout the city. So I know it's a big thing with the Parks and Rec as well. So I don't know if they also, might have people to recommend, or if they're part of this as well. I do feel like, it is important to move forward if they are having this meeting, and he's the chair right now. I do agree with Councilmember Sullivan that there needs to be a better process so people know who they're voting on. But I also know from past experience that sometimes it's hard to get volunteers to come forward. And if he's willing to serve another 3-year term, I will vote yes.
And I appreciate that. I was going to comment on the STA. The STA is very vocal. They actually get on every mayor and make sure that we're actively trying to make sure we get candidates, because just like you said, it is very hard to get candidates to step up for these positions. And I actively went around town and trying to find someone that would at least put in their application. And again, this was the gentleman that was already there. So continue with the roll call, please.
Councilmember Mashburn?
Aye.
Councilmember Sullivan?
No disrespect to my peers or Mr. Neal or Mr. Iverson, I'm going to abstain. I don't have that information to make a decision.
Mayor Roulette?
Yes. So I think we had, if I'm counting right, 5 yeses, 2 nos. Oh no, 5 yeses, 1 no, 1 abstention.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. So, we have adjournment. Next regular called meeting will be Tuesday, January 12th. I want to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and look forward to working with this council. Good night, Vacaville.